Yeah. Chris, you good? Yeah. All right, so board members, student board members, members of the public, welcome to our regularly scheduled board meeting. It is May 4th. Everything is set up. We have our interpretation. I want to hand it off to our board president, Alvarado. Take it away.
Good evening. I call this meeting of the Unified School District to order at 6:54. Please stand for the flag salute, and our high school board member Peter will lead us in the flag.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do roll call, trustee Kelly, present. Trustee Vargas,
Here.
trustee Smithfield, here. And trustee Morocco is absent tonight. Yes, sir. All right. And we have a report. Next thing on the agenda is item 3, public report of actions taken in closed session. In closed session, the board retained and directed legal counsel to initiate or intervene in a legal action, social media litigation by a 4-0 majority vote. The action, the defendants, and the other particulars shall, once formally commenced, be disclosed to any person upon inquiry, unless to do so would jeopardize the district's ability to effectuate service process on one or more unserved parties, or that to do so would jeopardize the district's ability to conclude existing settlement negotiations to its advantage. The members voted as follows: Alvarado, Kelly, Smithfield, Vargas, yes; Morocco, absent. The next item is closed session, item 1C. On May 4th, 2023, the board in closed session took action to release the following employee from their administrative position pursuant to Education Code Section 44951, effective at the end of the 2022-2023 school year, and directed the superintendent or designee to send out appropriate legal notice. Employee number 1, 23-05-04-01. The vote was as follows: the ayes 4, the noes 0, the abstention 0. Okay. All right, so I would like an approval of the agenda pulling 6, and we're going to pull 16T and 15E.
And we will bring those back to you at a future board meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda with the removal of items 15E Echo and 16T Tango.
Second.
All right, so it was moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? The motion carries 4-0. And the next item on the agenda is district announcements
All right, thank you.
with 5A, the retirement recognition.
Very good. Thank you, President Alvarado. Rachel, if you can come up to the podium. Every year we have the pleasure of recognizing staff members who have dedicated in many cases more than 30 years of their life to our community and to the students and the parents of Vista. This year, we have the pleasure earlier, of celebrating the retirements of 42 certificated staff members, teachers, psychologists, speech language pathologists, and other certificated support staff in our district, and 16 classified staff, secretaries, instructional assistants, bus drivers, and others. And we're so proud of the work that they have done. I had a chance to walk around and individually thank them. Many of our board members were here to thank them. And in talking with them, the majority of them had over 20 years of experience in our school district. And we are proud of them. We're happy that they're leaving, but we all asked them to come back after they get some rest. But it's a true pleasure every year to recognize the great work that they've done and the contribution they've made to our community. Rachel, just want to make a few statements, knowing that having been in HR and working closely with each of them.
Sure, and we're really happy that they did show up today at 4 o'clock to be recognized. Not everybody will come, and so we did appreciate that, and we are looking forward to having them back as soon as possible with the district and have our presentation.
I think we've already showed it.
Oh,
Before the
already?
meeting starts, so I think we're
Okay.
good on the presentation, and when we have a break, we will bring it up again.
Okay.
But we do have a slideshow. We showed that slideshow during our reception earlier today, and we actually will put that slideshow in our community update as well, so people can recognize it.
Dr. Doyle, are there any retirees present or families?
We can check. Is there anyone here that was part of our retirement? I think they've left. We had our event earlier today. It was wonderful. We celebrated and I think they wanted to get home, but
Perfect.
it was very well attended. So.
All right.
Going on
Okay.
to the next.
Yeah, going on to the next item on the agenda is 5B, the student board members and senior recognition.
Yes. So let's start with our student board members, and Chris will help us with this. But we always like to recognize the leadership of our growing leaders. They're ready to move off to college, so I do want to make a couple quick statements about each of you, and then we'd like to recognize you with a certificate of appreciation. So Melissa is our leader. She's also going to give her report tonight from Major General Murray High School. Melissa plans to attend Maricosta College in the fall and will continue working at Albertsons, my favorite store, by the way. After completing her associate degree, she plans to transfer to Cal State San Marcos and become an art therapist or social worker. Melissa, thank you so much for your leadership. We appreciate the great work you've done, and we'll hear from you later. We're going to have all three of you come up in a moment, and we'll give you your certificates. Haley Michael. Haley was not able to attend tonight. She's sick. But this evening, but she is committed to UC Santa Cruz. We want to congratulate Haley and her commitment to college, and we appreciate the great work that she has done. Kennedy Hicks from Vista High School. Kennedy has committed to UCSD and plans to major in aerospace engineering. That's a mouthful. That's fantastic. She's on the wait list for UCLA as well. So Kennedy, thank you so much for your leadership, and we really enjoyed the report that you gave us a couple of months ago. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Peter Childs, Rancho Buena Vista High School. Peter plans to study data science and social systems at Stanford University. He is exploring other majors, but that's the one he's leaning toward right now. So Peter, thank you so much. You also had a wonderful report. We appreciate it. Your leadership is greatly appreciated. So if we can bring them all up, and we have the certificate and
Come on down, you're the next contestant. Martha.
hold on a second, let me get my camera ready.
All you guys.
We gotta get our board members, so you can stand right
Yeah.
here. I'm gonna have you take each of their hands once they get down. Get this in order, so we're good. I'm good, I'm in order now. All right, you ready? Almost. It's a small room, so we'll make this work. All right, Kennedy, come on forward. Kennedy, congratulations. Yeah, she will. And then Kennedy, if you turn on right next to board members in the field, there you go.
No, put her in the middle.
In the middle? Okay. Put her in the middle, no problem. Put her right there.
She's the focal point.
There we go. Good. Good, we got it. All right.
All right.
Congratulations. Peter, congratulations. Yeah, come back. Teach computer science when you come back. All right, congratulations. And Melissa, congratulations. Yeah. Perfect.
Wait, where do we look? There or there? There?
I'm taking like 3.
Okay, over there.
Now we're the mom's over here. All right, congratulations. right, so one last statement for me on this section, and then I'll hand it back to our board president. This evening also is this is the last official board meeting, regularly scheduled board meeting of our school year with students in session. I think we all know that the end of our school year is June 7th. And so I wanted to officially recognize all of our seniors who are working very, very hard right now, studying, many of them getting ready for finals. And I know that their graduation, very important day in their life and the life of their family coming up soon. Our board members and I will be at those ceremonies. We're really looking forward to it. And we're so very proud of all of our graduating seniors. And I just want to quickly go down the road, because I'm sure each of our board members want to make an official statement before our seniors are gone. Ms. Smithfield.
Wow, I wasn't quite ready. Good thing I was paying attention a little bit. Congratulations, always proud of our seniors. You have such an exciting road ahead of you. You guys enjoy it, make good choices. And we're serious when we say we want to see you back.
Thank you.
All right, well, with it, we're gonna carry a lot of memories, especially being at this board and in this building, but also like the memories at Vista Unified, whether you started in kindergarten, middle school or high school with us, we look forward to the bright future you all have ahead because you're all talented. And with, there are other hundreds of students at your campuses that, we look forward to shaking hands. But more than anything, celebrating along with our entire community. So thank you.
I'm a mom of a senior. My son will graduate with you guys, hopefully soon. I keep telling him, we got, like 4 weeks, hold it together. Thanks for all your contributions and for being here. I hope you found it to be valuable and interesting. And I hope we really appreciate that you were here with us this year.
I want to echo everything that my fellow trustees have said, and I'm so hopeful for a better future for our community of Vista, our county, our state, because of you guys and the students that you go to school with. You guys are the change makers, and the amount of consciousness that your generation has is amazing and it's inspiring. And we, older folks, our generations, we look to you and for inspiration. And I'm just impressed with the level of social consciousness that your peers have, that you guys have. And I just want to thank you for that. Wait, before that, would you guys like to say anything?
Yeah,
Okay. Melissa, would you like to say? We'll start with Melissa and we'll go down. Yeah, because how we're giving you your accolades, but anything, whether it be to your peers at your school, your wonderful teachers that have molded you and helped you in so many ways, your parents.
Sure.
Beautiful.
I'd like to thank Dr. I specifically for pushing me to have these opportunities, because I wouldn't have other hand if he hadn't been like, you should do this. And I'm really grateful for staff at my school to push these things. I wouldn't normally have that.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I know like only one of us from each school gets to do this, so I'm really fortunate to be the one that gets to represent my school. And there's a lot of staff members here today. I want to say thank you to all of you because I don't think I'd be the student or the person I am today without the staff members that pushed me to be here.
I just want to thank all the students and staff at RBD, especially the ones that I've kind of grown up alongside who are graduating this year. We went to school through essentially the literal plague, so we've been through a lot. We've worked really hard to get here, so I think every single one of us kind of deserves that celebratory moment to walk across that stage.
Absolutely.
All right, so the next item on the agenda is 5C, the proclamation for teacher and all certificated professionals appreciation week. And I will read the first proclamation. Teacher and all certificated professional appreciation week. Whereas the education of youth is essential to the future of our community, state, country, and world. And whereas our certificated professionals mold future citizens through guidance and education. And whereas certificated professionals embrace students of widely differing backgrounds. And whereas our certificated professionals are committed to stopping at nothing to remove barriers to high quality education for all of our students. And whereas our country's future depends upon providing quality education to all students. And whereas certificated professionals spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling, coaching students, and performing community service. And whereas our certificated professionals go beyond teaching and serving our students to provide social and emotional learning, mental health support, address hunger and support the whole child. And whereas our community recognizes and supports its certificated professionals in educating the children of Vista Unified School District. Now therefore, the Vista Unified School District Board of Directors proclaim the week of May 8th to the 12th, 2023 as Teacher Appreciation Week and to honor all of our certificated professionals. We observe this week by taking time to recognize and acknowledge the impact of all of our certificated professionals, the impact that all of our certificated professionals have on our lives. Teachers, nurses, counselors, social workers, psychologists, and speech language pathologists. Signed the 4th day of May, 2023, Martha Alvarado.
Nice.
I have a proclamation as well. This is for Classified School Employees Week. Whereas classified professionals provide valuable services to the schools and students of Vista Unified School District. And whereas classified professionals contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment. And whereas classified professionals serve a vital role in providing for the welfare and safety of Vista Unified students. And whereas classified professionals employed by the Vista Unified School District strive for excellence in all areas relative to the educational community. Therefore, be it resolved that the Vista Unified School District hereby recognizes and wishes to honor the contributions of the classified professionals to quality education in the state of California and the Vista Unified School District. And we proclaim the week of May 21st to 27th as Classified School Employees Week. Also signed this 4th day of May by President Alvarado.
Nice.
And proclamation for Substitute Employee Appreciation Week.
Whereas a strong, effective system of public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government. And whereas much of this progress can be attributed to the dedicated employees entrusted with supporting the educational environment so our children can grow to their full potential. And whereas substitute employees play a vital role in maintaining continuity of instruction in a positive learning environment when the employee is away. And whereas it is appropriate that substitute employees be recognized for their dedication and commitment. Now, therefore, the Board of Trustees of Vista Unified School District do hereby proclaim the week of May 1st through the 5th, 2003 as Substitute Employee Appreciation Week. Signed this 4th day of May 2003, President Martha Alvarado.
Nice.
And then we have a proclamation for certificated and classified substitute employee recognition.
This one's a little trickier because there's
Yes.
actually three, but Cipriano, I think is gonna start.
Yes, and I just wanted to explain that this is the time of year that we recognize specific classified employees from certificated and classified. We have our golden apple for our permanent employees, and then this is a time that we honor those that have contributed greatly to our district, so.
Perfect. Can I have Lorena Dominguez come up to the front?
She'll come, she's back there. Stand here for a second and listen.
Lorena, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. It's my pleasure to read this remarks, but Lorena is an instructional aid substitute that has been instrumental to our Foothill Oak team. Lorena has filled many openings for us over the past 2 years. Though Lorena is a substitute, she's a valued member of the Foothill Oak team. She participates in all of our activities. She reads the weekly bulletins, and she is constantly communicating with our team to ensure all students are being taken care of. Lorena proactively takes on any task we give her, She pushes into classrooms to help our students with IEPs. She supports small groups and she is always willing to jump in and support students that need that extra love and attention. Mrs. Lorena is a dedicated member of the Vista Unified, who demonstrates the district values of respect, trust, collaboration, equity, and kindness. On behalf of this board, it's an honor to recognize you during this classified substitute recognition. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we got my phone. We got it.
Just like on the-
Now it's pretty. Right here. Excellent.
We stay up here for the next. Yeah, here for the next.
We only have two more. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Edith Sando.
Come on up, Eva.
We get to stand here and while I do this.
I was gonna read it.
Oh, around is, yes, she just, you get to see that. Edith's an instructional assistant substitute. She has been consistently subbing on our campus 2 days a week at Temple Heights. She has a heart of gold and the patience of a saint. She works with a variety of students on a daily basis that require tender love and attention. She knows how to calm students and gain their trust so they are willing to work for her. She has been flexible and steps in wherever and whenever she is needed. She always has a smile on her face and a positive attitude. She is truly a gem.
Thank you for your help.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Right here? Yeah. Yes. And we have one more.
It's Sarah McFarland.
Yes,
Stand here and be embarrassed for a minute. Sarah McFarland is a cohort sub for the Vista Unified School District. And cohort subs work out of the district office and explains a little bit here. Which means that she waits until 7 a.m. every morning for a call from HR to be assigned to a site that is in critical need of a substitute. Being a cohort substitute requires great flexibility and adaptability, and Sarah accepts this with such energy and positivity. It is always a treat to call her in the morning. Her cohort sites love to see her when they are the lucky ones that have her sub there for the day. If there are no shortages within her cohort, she is more than happy to help other schools as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure working in
Thank
this district.
Thank you.
Excellent.
The last one is not here, but we wanted to recognize Nathan Fulton. And Nathan Fulton, was hired as a substitute teacher. He was gonna be a great employee. He's respectful, energetic, and dedicated. When asked to take on long-term assignments in PE, he jumped at the chance. Here is how Vista High School Admin Secretary Leah Howard described him. He is always so positive, flexible, kind, and the students love him. He is always willing to learn and help out in any way. Great guy. And we'll
Right.
send his.
Finished?
Yes, we are finished with district announcements. The next item on the agenda is the presentation by committee members. Public comment to committee members. Any member of the audience who wishes to hold and speak to an agenda item or at the appropriate time speak to an item not on the agenda should complete a hold card and present it to the board secretary before item 2A or before the meeting begins. In an effort to gain as much public input as possible, individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes or less. A total of 20 minutes will be held for public comments under item 6A. The remainder of public comments will be continued after the completion of the discussion items if necessary. All right, so we only have one hold card for 6A. Right, would Mayra Morano come up, please? Okay. You'll be given 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Mayra Molano. I'm a parent at Grapevine Elementary. My son is in fourth grade, first generation in the dual immersion program. He'll be ready to start fifth grade pretty soon. And I just wanted to know, is there any updates in which middle school they'll be heading? Also, I do have a little one that's 5. He'll be starting the dual immersion program also. And I've been doing the orientations for the other two, the Alamosa and Analeli. And I just wanted to see if there's gonna be instructional aids in Grapevine also. And lastly, our principal will be leaving at the end of the school year, and what is the process for parents to be in the panel for hiring? Yeah.
Thank you, Maida. While we're not allowed to like engage in conversation about your public comment, we'll have Dr. Doyle follow up on how the process works for those questions that you have.
Okay,
Okay,
sounds
thank you.
good. Thank you.
All right. All right, the next item on the agenda is 7A, report from school-related organizations, Vista Teachers Association.
Good evening. Board, student board members, Dr. Doyle and cabinet, may the fourth be with you. And I want to say congratulations to our student board members, all our seniors, my son included, and to our retirees. The tentative agreement, TA, was ratified with a 65% yes member votes on Thursday, April 27th. After board approval tonight, we can move forward and continue to make the USD within the top 5 salaries of the surrounding districts. This TA included language for our career technical education teachers, CTE, and for our adult ed teachers as well. It moved nurses and social workers to the salary scale of SLPs and psychologists. And it included a 6.07% ongoing increase to salary and compaction of our salary scale to 25 years. That did help a lot of our teachers. Retaining and attracting qualified educators is one strategy to bring families into our communities and into our schools. And in a time of projected declining enrollment, which you will be seeing a presentation on tonight, we need to focus on the common goal of making Vista a great place to learn and to work. But I also speak for the 35% of members who did not vote for the TA to pass. Board, Dr. Doyle, cabinet, VTA sees the advisory committee in which we will have meaningful discussions about Articles 18, duty hours, and Article 20, class size, as a way to rebuild trust with especially our 2 high schools who are going to be mostly impacted by the possibility of a 7-period day. Not only does this committee give us a chance to discuss the possible schedule changes in high school, but we can also address such items as the inequity of prep in elementary, the inequity of prep between the 3 comprehensive high schools. We can examine middle school cap sizes and elementary class sizes. We can look into caps for counselors. We can talk about our specialty teachers who don't have a cap size, like our PE or some of our ELD teachers. We can turn these discussions from this committee into action and move forward and begin negotiations for the next 3-year contract. Yeah, we're already there again. A strong contract is where we find the support for our educators to be able to be student focused, which when we are talking about the adult profile, the supports for our adults are important so they can support our students in obtaining the graduate profile that we're working for. Our working conditions are the learning conditions of our students. So thank you very much and have a good evening. Congratulations.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 7B. A report from the California School Board Association.
All right, if we're here. Good evening, board members, student board members, and CSDA brothers, sisters, and siblings of Vista Unified Chapter 389. My name is Marcela Ramos, CSDA Chapter President and a district interpreter and translator for general education. Tonight, I would like to start off by introducing our executive board. We'll start off with someone you see on a monthly basis, our first vice president and chief union steward, Mario Bojorquez. He's a transportation assistant and works under transportation department. We have our second vice president, Mr. Apocasi. She's a data and assessment technician at the Vista Adult School. Treasurer, Robert Johnson. He's a lead grounds maintenance worker in grounds department. Communications officer, Leticia Robles, district interpreter and translator for special education. And secretary, Catherine Cruz, administrative secretary at Rancho Minerva Middle School. She was not able to be here tonight. We are happy that classified employees are being recognized today. Classified School Employee Week is celebrated the third week of May to recognize the vital contributions of classified employees. This year's theme is classified professionals, indispensable, inspiring, and invisible. Custodial and maintenance staff keep our campuses clean and safe. Bus drivers and transportation staff get students to school safely. Office staff meet the needs of students, parents, and administrators. Food service workers keep students fed and ready to learn. Technical staff keep everyone connected and online, including families. Instructional assistants support students and help them overcome new challenges, both in classrooms and in our before and after school programs. Campus assistants keep our school grounds safe and secure. Community liaisons engage with our families and the entire Vista community. Interpreters and translators provide meaningful language access to our LOE families, languages other than English. We are essential to our communities. We are classified professionals. Thank you.
Right, the next item on the agenda is 7C, report from the District English Language Advisory Committee, or TULAC.
Okay. Vivian, are you able to hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we are ready to go. Ana está aquí. Estamos a sus órdenes para empezar. Ana?
Ok, muy buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Tengo la actualización de la mesa directiva de DILA. DILA realizó una junta oficial el lunes 17 de abril y se cumplió con el quórum de 13 escuelas de 22, 3 escuelas representadas de las 22 escuelas del distrito escolar.
Un momentito. Go ahead.
So
Vivian.
I have the update from our DLAC. DLAC had an official meeting on Monday, April 17th, and quorum was met. We had 13 out of the 22 schools present.
En esta reunión se completó una tarea que fue la tarea número 7, la cual es revisar y comentar sobre el desarrollo y actualización anual del control local y plan de responsabilidades LCAP para el año escolar 23-24.
In this meeting, one task was completed, task number 7, where we reviewed and made comments on the local control accountability, the LCAP, for the 2023-2024 school year.
Con respecto a estas tareas, Dila quisiera respetuosamente recomendar, número 1, los aprendientes de inglés deben de tener más apoyo para tener tutorías en las áreas de inglés y matemáticas.
Based on these tasks, DLAG would like to respectfully recommend that, number 1, English learners have more support to have tutoring in the areas of English and Spanish. I'm sorry, English and math.
La segunda recomendación es que los aprendientes de inglés deben de tener cursos de verano y que se les incentive a los estudiantes aprendientes de inglés de preparatoria o bachillerato con visitas a las universidades cada año a partir de que comienzan el grado 9.
Our second recommendation is for English language learners to have summer courses and also to incentivize our English language learners in high school to encourage higher education with universities or community college by having them visit one every year, starting in 9th grade.
La tercera recomendación es que los estudiantes de secundaria tengan más apoyo social y emocional.
Our third recommendation is that middle school students have more social emotional support.
La última junta oficial de DILAC se llevará a cabo el lunes 15 de mayo a las 6 de la tarde en el VIC.
Our last official DLAC meeting will be held on Monday, May 15th at 6 o'clock in the evening at the VIC.
Okay. Vivian, ¿pudieras ayudarme con mi siguiente comentario?
Claro.
Ok, el día de ayer, 3 de mayo, asistí a la junta del Comité Asesor de Gestión de Activos que se dio en la escuela Rancho Minero.
So yesterday, May 3rd, I attended the committee at Rancho Minerva that was organized for the closures.
Ok, a esta reunión llegaron aproximadamente 12 familias. Los padres pensaban que era un foro comunitario, pero algunos sabíamos que era reunión del comité. El problema que teníamos es que 11 familias se dieron la vuelta porque no había quien les hiciera una traducción de lo que estaba sucediendo en esta reunión.
So 12 families were there because they thought it was a community forum. They didn't know that it was a committee presentation. And so out of those families, 11 families turned around and left because they did not have interpretation.
Pero al pasar de los minutos en la reunión, tuve conversaciones con algunas familias que estaban ahí presentes, lo cual ellos tenían un lenguaje de un 75% en inglés.
And so after being there for a while, I spoke to some families there, and their English language comprehension was about 75%.
Lo cual quiere decir que para mí también representaba un problema porque al conversar con ellos, ellos tuvieron la impresión de que esta reunión solo se trataba de que los miembros de la junta estaban ahí sentados, porque ya el plan ya está hecho.
And so after speaking to them, the understanding was that the meeting was just a meeting from the committee members because the plan has already been made.
Los padres estaban inconformes porque decían que había mucha incomunicación y más sabiendo, lo que llamó la atención es saber que había profesores y también ellos estaban recibiendo mala información. Entonces decían, al escuchar ellos al comité y ver que había frases como, quiero información, y respuesta como, ¿para qué la quieres saber? Era como, no estamos entendiendo nada de lo que está pasando.
And so part of the reason it was they have an unsatisfactory with that meeting was because of the misinformation that was given. They didn't know that teachers were also there. And so when we asked questions and wanted information, the response was, why do you want that information?
Con mucho respeto, le voy a pedir, por favor, que si este no es reporte del DILAC, oficialmente, este no es el horario, el tiempo en nuestra junta para comunicarse de esa manera. Mucho más mejor 6A hubiera sido un lugar donde usted puede venir como miembro de nuestra comunidad, no como la presidenta de DILAC.
Give Vivian a chance to translate that. Vivian, can you
Thank
translate that?
Yes, so with all due respect, this time has been reserved for the DLAC report. And since that was not part of the DLAC report, the better time to express that as a member of the community is item 6A. Because this time has been reserved just for DLAC, and we would like to hear you as a member of the community, but the better time would be to express that concern in item 6A.
Y también nos podemos comunicar después de la junta, yo o el doctor Doyle, para hablar sobre sus preocupaciones.
And then another thing we can do is we can also get together with you after the meeting, either myself or Dr. Doyle, to talk about your concerns.
Gracias.
Ok, muchas gracias. Solamente quiero disculparme, pero la verdad es que también es otra parte que nosotros, la comunidad hispana, no entendemos la agenda, no entendemos cuándo tienes que tomar una tarjeta, cuál es el momento. Entonces también no sabemos cuándo y los papás solamente dicen, tú vas a ir a la reunión. Ya.
Después de la junta esta noche podemos hablar.
Claro, gracias.
Gracias.
All right. The next item on the agenda is AA board member report outs from any
The
events.
next item, la siguiente parte de la agenda es de los miembros.
All right, trustee Smith.
I have a few things. First, the facilities, which I know we have a little report. We had our beam signing, of course, at Vista High. Pretty impressive. There I have to say myself. And at Rancho for the CPD building. We are still progressing. We met at Beaubier last week with the student and teacher, well, the student ambassadors. We told them what their job is, what it entails, and I think they're all really excited. We deputize them. The other thing, I don't know if my son answered you, but Mission Vista was just named Project Lead the Way, one of 26 schools in the state.
That's
and
right.
Over 600 nationally, and they were one of the ones to get the award. And I
Fifth
just,
year in a row.
5th year in a row, and I have to share with you guys that on, I don't know because I forgot my phone and the flyer was on my phone. That, that the students from Mission Vista, Project Lead the Way in the medical or biomed class will be doing their poster projects with the ideas they came up, and they would like to invite us to go and read them. It's from 6 to 8. I'll get you the date as soon as my son answers back. And just a quick thing of one of the projects. So these kids are in high school. So she did a project, she was researching to find the markers one would have if they were prone to become addicted to opioids. So your doctor would do a blood test. And then they could take it out of the blood already drawn for your full panel. And they could see if there's markers. So if you had a bad back or something, they would know she or he has the markers, don't prescribe them opioids, give them something else. Another quick one, football helmet. We all saw the football guy this year on the football field. His heart stopped. Well, if you noticed a few seconds before. So they're working on a helmet that has the electrodes and everything in it that would have actually notified the field before he even fell to the ground that his heart had stopped. And these are kids in Mission Vista, so it is, yeah, very mind blowing. Anybody's here from Mission Vista, well. So anyway, they invited us to come and ask them questions about their project and get them ready for the big.
Awesome. Thank you, trustee Smith. Bill. Trustee Vargas?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to all of our schools that participated in the USD Under the Stars spin-off performances from all of our across our district. It's great to see the arts, continue to grow and expand in our school district and, to our instructors, teachers, staff, parents that are helping be part of that process. In addition to that, got to attend Dia de los Niños at FAPA, another wonderful performance there by many of our community organizations and partners. And, our foundation board there with our parents being involved and coordinating that, and our parent liaison. And I also attended the ROTC promotion ceremony with Dr. Dole. So, bright students there at Vista High School, and under the leadership of the colonel there. So thank you for that. And then two more items was in Washington, DC last year, advocating for continued support for public education. The three topics were special education, making sure that we get our fair share. It's the minimum mandate, but also the right thing to do for our students within special education. Second thing, mental health. We know that's a big, huge, not just only for our students, but for our staff and the adults in our community. And so the bipartisan Paper Committees Act was passed last year, so we'll be seeing some of that funding come to the state of California, and hopefully we'll get some of that funding. And then the third one is cybersecurity, which we know we've seen the hacks, especially in other school districts where information, personal data is getting breached, and so we can have the infrastructure, but we also need the support to make sure that we have secure access to Wi-Fi connectivity. And we'll be doing some following with our local legislatures, elected officials. I did see Mario in Sacramento, so Mario, thank you for doing your part in Sacramento as well. And lastly, we had our climate action committee with Dr. Sean. Great progress. We'll be bringing back some recommendations in a future presentation to the board for us to consider some actions that we can do to be sustainable, environmental friendly, and making sure that we look at protecting our beautiful planet.
Yeah. And I wanted to dismiss the students who are here observing because you've been here longer than an hour. So if you guys need to get your paperwork signed, we'll have one of our assistant superintendents sign your form, and thank you for your patience. I should have done that earlier. Trustee Kelly.
So since our last meeting, I had the opportunity to attend one of the performances of the Art Under the Stars event, which was wonderful, and really want to give kudos to everyone who worked hard behind the scenes and on the stages to make that happen. I personally took on the role of helping to rewrite our governance handbook, which someday soon will be on our website, and you can read it if you want. It's a document that helps our board assimilate new members and decide how to govern for Vista correctly, and it was a pleasure to work on that project. I had the opportunity to attend lunch at Panther Cafe at Vista High School, and it was delicious. Students in the culinary arts program open up their cafe once a month, I believe, and the treat for anyone who gets to go. I am one of our delegates for the California School Boards Association. We had our regular standing monthly meeting that I attended, and that's a great forum for board trustees to learn about legislation and advocacy opportunities, and also draw on each other for information. And I guess the last thing was being able to award a bike, a raffled bike to a third grader at Impressa Elementary. She was randomly drawn from the number of students and families who came to our first two bike safety nights. So stay tuned. We hope to roll out more of those, unintended.
With a helmet.
Thank you. And so I was able to attend the Vista High Student of the Year celebration with Trustee Smithfield. That was beautiful. We got to celebrate some of the best and brightest students at Vista High, and not just with academics, but with social emotional, with their community service, with their performing arts. And it was very touching to see so much greatness in our students. We attended Trustee Smithfield the early childhood education fair last Saturday, and that was always great. We had almost 2,000 attendees, so we're really reaching out to the families with young folks and getting them enrolled in our TKs or our preschools. And so and then just getting them hooked up with news, like letting them see what's available at every school site, right? We have so many specialty programs at the school site, so that was great. We attended Arts Under the Stars on different nights, which was beautiful. I think it was all very entertaining, and I really enjoyed the performance of Lion King. Shout out to was it Monta Vista? Monta Vista. Oh man, they were amazing. Lion King was amazing. And last but not least, Trustee Kelly and we were able to attend a leadership training with all the administrators, with Dr. Doyle at UC San Diego, with a lot of our partners at UC San Diego, and we're very fortunate to have access to these specialists, these world-renowned researchers, to really bring out the best in our administrators and our superintendent. And I'm just grateful for that partnership. It was very informative. So that was it. That's a wrap for staff reports. All right. The next item on the agenda is 9A, a student board member report from Major General Murray High School, and Ms. Melissa Soria will present to the board along with Dr. Iglesias. And by the way, Dr. Iglesias is his other school, also Vista, was recognized as one of the model continuation high schools in the state of California. And it's fabulous staff. They're doing incredible work. They're changing lives.
Thank
They're
you.
changing lives in Vista.
Appreciate that. Good evening, Board President Alvarado, members of the Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Doyle, and cabinet members. I am honored to introduce Major General Murray's student board member, Melissa Soria. It is so rare to get to know a brilliant mind. She's elevated my thinking a lot. Melissa has been able to represent Major General Murray in so many venues, forums, and councils, and even, of course, the Board of Education. Not to add any more pressure to your presentation tonight, I have never heard a student connect all the dots. She honors all her collective experiences from K-12 when she speaks in public, especially at the career superhighway. Did a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the board, Melissa Soria.
Nice.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members, President Alvarado, fellow student representatives, and the public. I am Melissa Soria, and I have the absolute honor of delivering the Major General Raymond Murray report tonight. Before I dive solely into Murray, I would like to acknowledge the parallels MGM has with our sister school, Alta Vista High School. Our schools are evolving into big picture learning and shifting from just being continuation schools to now also being community schools. Some of the programs developing to expand our students' educational experiences include Garden 31, which is a partnership with a local nonprofit, Miracosta's Horticulture Department, and Project Rebound. We have Project Aware, culinary courses, and at Murray we have the wonderful Chop Champion Chef Eliza. We have elementary school literacy mentorships. Murray interns with the lovely Bovier Elementary School, which is also a community school. We have music courses. We have our amazing joint athletic teams, and we have weekly or almost weekly college tours to Miracosta, Palomar, and Cal State San Marcos. This year, we've been focused on growing our community hubs, where our community can seek resources on our campuses. With both blood drives this year, we've had students, staff, and even local community members walk on campus and save lives. We also have resources for medical, vision, and mental health available for students and their family. I know that my peers, like my friends specifically, have gotten support on campus that they wouldn't have gotten either way on somewhere else. The biggest change for Murray this year was the addition of advisories. The plan was to provide social emotional support and to have a space for exploration with interest, and then dive into hands-on career-focused learning, which includes all the opportunities I previously listed. In 2021, Murray was given the title of Model Continuation School, and as it grows in sync with our new garden, Murray will continue to blossom and give back to its own community. I am so immensely proud of the school. The school has truly, genuinely, immensely impacted me in ways I don't have time to properly articulate. My wish is to leave a little piece of my heart in its legacy.
Nice.
Okay, our next item on the agenda, if I can give a moment here, would be 9B, our summer program updates.
All right, thank you, Vice President Kelly. We're gonna jump right into it. We have a series of board reports for you. We've made them quite short. We're gonna get through them quickly, but we are super excited. We made a lot of progress on our summer learning. Last year was a huge success. And we're hoping, our team is hoping to build on that success. We're pretty confident that a lot of interest from our teachers in participating, we've already had a lot of interest from our students. So Dr. Olmsted and her team are going to go over a very brief report on our preparation for this summer for exciting summer learning opportunities. And I think we are ready. Dr. Olmsted.
Hello. Haven't seen you in a while. So our summer learning opportunities with our expanded learning opportunities funding we have now from the state, it actually gives us more opportunities. And we cannot put a summer program together without an amazing staff. So before I get started, I just want to recognize the staff that is in here. So Rafa, Sandra, Nicole, Lori, Amy, Sherry. Did I miss anybody? Okay, Narita, there you are, Narita. They all have a hand in putting together this program because we have our English learners who get support during the summer, our students with disabilities, and then all of our students who have opportunities during the summer. So to start with, our elementary summer school is kind of in a two-part this year. We have our, what you normally understand as our regular kind of academic summer school for students who need some extra interventions during the summer. So we will have that again this summer. Our theme is Wild About Learning. It will be hosted at 5 sites: Alamosa, Breeze Hill, Lake, Maryland, the Leadership Academy. Each site will host approximately 100 students in incoming 1st to 5th grade. So that gives us 500 students. But we actually had a few more teachers say that they can work the 3 weeks, and we probably can expand to another 200 students. We have about 750 who have showed interest, but with staffing, we'll probably be able to meet about 650 of them. So we're super excited about the interest we have this year. And we're able to pay a little bit of extra because of our expanded learning opportunities funding. So we're getting a lot of interest there. Hours will be 8 to 12, and it will be focused on language arts and math with a pre-test and a post-test and feedback given to the next incoming teacher. And we will be offering transportation. My buddy back there. Next one. So it's 3 weeks intensive academics, focus on high state standards in ELA and math, and then alignment with our AM and PM site programs. And so we've done a lot of articulation with our friend Sherry, who runs our after school programs, and excited about the opportunities we have to offer and expand this summer. Next slide. And so the program for any child who wants to attend an expanded learning program is called Bloom Where You're Planted. It will start June 12th and run from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. We have a couple different scales that we have. We have a fee-based, a partial fee, and a full fee-based based on income eligibility. It's offered by the week, so you don't have to sign up for every week. And there's a daily power hour of reading time, weekly field trips, enrichment activities, and a soccer program. And it's open to incoming K through 6th grade students. So we will keep 5th graders who are matriculating up in our summer program at the elementary level. And super excited, based on staffing, we've had a couple of conversations with additional outside agencies who might be able to provide extended staffing for us that we need to accommodate all the students who are interested. Next slide. We also will be offering Jumpstart Kindergarten. And so this is to get our kindergartners and early leg up. We'll do some screening assessments, introductory lessons, and some family support during that time. Dates are still coming in for those. We're working around facility scheduling with that, but we will have Jumpstart this year again. Next slide. And then our multilingual summer program, we will have an opportunity for our newcomers, our at-risk or long-term English learners, and another long-term English learner summer school program. And then our dual language immersion programs will have an opportunity for summer school as well. Next slide. And then extended school year, so these are students with disabilities who need that extra support during the summer. That will happen again, and it's designed to foster retention of the acquired academic and behavioral skills. We will follow our least restrictive environment settings. It's annually considered by the IEP team, which students should do extended day school year, and then it's provided at no cost to our parents. And the extended school year will be at Cal Ab, Impressa, and Vista Adult Transition Center.
Our secondary summer school will run a lot like we have every summer. It'll be offered at all of our middle school and high school campuses. Last year, we had about 2,300 middle and high school students attend. We offer remediation as well as some acceleration. And we'll be offering it at Vista, RBB, Mission, and Alta, Murray, and it'll run for 6 weeks. And students take their own time and their pace to get through those courses. And then we have a few other offerings with bridge enrichment and remediation for students who need that extra support as well at the secondary level. And that is our overview. Yes, sir.
So there's nothing in any of the middle schools?
Yeah, that's all at middle schools, middle school and high school were the secondary offerings.
It'll be at all of them.
All the middle schools will offer. Mhm.
That's why they're not.
Yeah, they're not listed because we're doing all schools. All secondary schools will have a program.
Thank you.
Mhm.
For our McKinney-Vento kids, are we targeting them and like encouraging them to be?
Yes, so McKinney-Vento kids also fall under our unduplicated people. And so every child who is a UPP student is prioritized and reached out to for attendance.
And then second thing, or are we doing summer drop-off locations, Dr. Dill? The summer lunches pickup.
For lunches, all of our sites will offer food, access to food, to both breakfast and lunch.
Perfect, if we can coordinate with at least the elementary schools, because they're already there, you know, medical.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I have no questions. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome. I think I'm still up here for the next presentation.
Yeah, all right.
I just have to wait for you.
Thank you, team.
All right, our next item on the agenda is 9C and feedback, and we do have a speaker. Corinne Devine.
Good evening, board, Dr. Doyle, students, parents, and community members. My name is Corinne Devine, and I'm a teacher at Grapevine Elementary School. I'm here to speak on the LCAP review, which you will be presented to in a few minutes. I can't help but to feel happy as I read through the slides earlier today. Made me feel incredibly proud to work in Vista and at Grapevine. There are two categories on a couple of the slides. One category is what is working well. The other one is areas for growth. As I was reading through the bullet points for the areas that were working well, I couldn't help but to think about my school and all things Grapevine does on a daily basis to help students succeed. We see PBIS, we see world languages, in which Grapevine is a DLI school, English language support teachers, which also includes helping with GLAD, which we are currently a GLAD school. One thing that did stand out to me in the area working well is learning support teachers. At Grapevine, we have one learning support teacher, and she's incredible, absolutely incredible. She helps pull students every day to do targeted instruction and small group reading. I'm forever grateful to this district for having that support. At this time, learning support teachers are allocated one to each school for equality. What I'm here asking for is to make it more equitable. One area that is currently not equitable is in the DLI program at Grapevine. Students who need that little extra push, that little extra help in Spanish are not being seen because they're not being helped in Spanish by a learning support teacher. Currently, our learning support teacher is stretched really thin. In order to meet all the students' needs, we would need at least an extra learning support teacher, one that could help in both English and Spanish. We have a very large school of 752 students to be exact, which is very different than a school with 478. When thinking about equity, we need to also be thinking about the students that are there at the school. We need to think about their needs, not just in English, but in Spanish as well. When you look at the data across the 3 DLI schools, you'll see the need for Spanish learning support teacher, not just making sure that there's one teacher at every school, but one also there to help all the students. So as you listen to LCAP review, I want you to be thinking about Grapevine and all the accomplishments from this past year, because they're having accomplishments. And one just recently, we did receive gold for PBIS. Yes. And so we can strengthen, because this is a strength, we can further strengthen Grapevine by adding a learning support teacher that could help in Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick, oh, no, we're continuing. This is for today's item. 9C, now the presentation.
Right.
As Dr. Holtig is ready to start, so we do this every year. This is step one of the multiple steps that we take for the board to consider our recommendation for next year's LCAP, local control accountability plan, which we also call our blueprint. And so the purpose of tonight is to begin to give you some feedback about what our communities say. One of the key cornerstones of the development of an LCAP every year is to make sure that we listen to our community. And we define our community as students, teachers, staff members, family members, and community members. So, and we've done all of that, and Christine's gonna talk a little bit about that tonight. And then in the future meeting, we'll be bringing forward to you the actual substance of the LCAP, and we'll go over the revisions that we're recommending based on the feedback we got from our community. So that's the purpose of the presentation. It's very brief, but we did want to give you a highlight. Dr. Olmsted.
Thank you. Again, community feedback cannot happen without a team. And so I just really need to thank our team, Kelly Fleming, who really helps us with the LCAP, and our directors, our 3 teachers on special assignment, Craig, Michelle, and Teresa, all helped with really getting our student feedback. Our directors, Dr. Doyle went out, Rachel, Amy, everybody went out and helped gather as much community feedback as we could. So just big thank you there.
Excuse me, pardon. It's 8 o'clock, and so I want to dismiss our student board members because they have school tomorrow, but you're more than welcome to stay, but it's 8 o'clock, so if you guys need to go do homework, get something to eat, you're formally dismissed, but thank you so much. You do stay.
Stay on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, they.
Take that with you. Take the bottom one too, that says student board
Yeah.
members, you have both of them.
Yeah.
We're about to bring it.
The chair. See you guys on graduation day.
Sorry about that.
No, that's
That was-
anything for students.
That was absolutely precious.
That was great. And Melissa will make sure you get yours.
Yeah.
Put it in your bag now.
No. All right. Thank you for being so patient.
Hey, absolutely. Students are the most important.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through these slides pretty quickly because you're very familiar with this process, but I just we wanted to have slides in here to show you what we kind of did with our community group, so you have an idea. And so, as you know, this is part of a legal requirement when we developed the LCAP, but also just good for us to do, to get feedback. And so this is what we looked at. Next slide. And so when we spent time with each of these groups, we looked at and explained how the development of the blueprint and the LCAP work together. We talked about how once we kind of develop our goals, actions, and services, then the funding gets applied. We give them an overview of the LCAP and then opportunity for feedback broken down by our goals. Next slide. And so this is really kind of a simple slide we share with them, how the blueprint then drives the LCAP. Next slide. In that we've explained that the LCAP is important to our funding, and then that the state of California allocates the funds through the our local control funding formula. In that we get money based on the needs of our student population. And that there's 3 different types of funding that we get, so we explain that to our parents and our community members. And that really it's our plan to explain how our goals improve student outcomes and address specific state and local priorities. And that we break these down into conditions of learning, engagement, and student outcomes. And that we base our board goals on these things. And then we always walk through the framework and how the framework ties to our goals. So you can speak through these, Dr. Doyle. We go through what the learner portrait is, the adult portrait, the systems portrait, and the core values. And then we did go through with them how you all revised your board goals this year and did leading and lagging measures and explain then how these get put into the LCAP and the blueprint. So we can go through all of those. What we wanted to share with you really and highlight was the learner feedback. And so we, our team went out and gathered information from over 500 students. K-12, TK-12 actually. So they really did talk to kindergarten students. We did face-to-face forums with them. We asked principals to select about 25 students per school to actually provide feedback. And so what students said was working well, we kind of categorized it into big buckets, was safety. They actually like having their school resource officers on campus. It makes them feel safe. Safety was a big concern that came out from our students. And it's not that our campuses are safe. It's what they're hearing about school shootings and things like that. They're very scared to come to school sometimes. And so that came out as a level of expression. And so they did appreciate having presence on campus. Social learning support. Love student wellness centers. They like to think about getting one at their own campus because they've heard of other ones. So that's something we'll look into more. They appreciate our emphasis on world languages and music with hands-on learning in math and opportunities to create things at various campuses. Some areas for growth that they pointed out for us is they want more school resource officers, more an increase in mental health services and availability for that, adding wellness centers to all school campuses. One of the things that came out was in school libraries and in school classrooms to have more selections in Spanish and English. So we're looking at that. And then also promoting more STEM and CTE courses and increasing arts instruction. And then for college and career readiness, offering more opportunities for dual enrollment came out from our students. Next slide. And this is just their feedback in a word cloud. They think school is amazing and happy and safe and fun from the elementaries. Our middle schools think it's all right. It's interesting. It's exciting.
They're honest.
They're honest. All right. I'm sure our principal at Madison can say that a lot better than I do. High school, they're motivated. They also think it's all right. It's good, belonging, growth, things like that they're seeing there. Next slide. Our adult feedback, between going to DPAT meetings, DLAC, PTA, working with our administrators, our VTA, our CSCA, things that they noted were working well. We showed them the board goals and they liked culturally relevant teaching. They liked prioritizing our conditions of learning. For safety, our adults also like school resource officers and our emphasis we've had on digital citizenship this year, as well as our emphasis on PBIS. Our SEL programs are successful. For parent, family, and community engagement, they love our community liaisons. That came up over and over and over again. They love our community liaisons and the communication they get from the district. In academics, they're appreciate the personalized learning pathways and the expansion we're doing in those areas. The opportunities for after school was talked about a lot. They appreciate the investment the board is making in the schools, and they see that happening. And they appreciate that we provide access and computers for all students. Some areas for growth, better understanding about what the performance framework is and what personalized learning is. Safety, more work around cyber safety and digital citizenship, and more school resource officers. Social emotional learning, they'd like to increase the number of supports we have in people on campuses when it comes to social emotional learning. Something that came out, well, they love all the communication from the district. They like to have a streamlined platform. I feel like we have multiple platforms for communication and they get confused about which ones to check. And then academics, understanding more about what the essential skills and standards are for each grade level would be helpful to our families. Next thing that was my quick presentation. Any feedback or questions?
Questions, feedback?
Pro tip, don't start eating when you need to speak soon. When you have feedback about more school resource officers, could you discern if that meant more per site or one dedicated resource officer person?
One per site.
One
Yeah,
per site.
they talked a lot of just about campus supervisors and that type of support. Just looking for more kind of adults to help with supervision is what they're really asking for.
Thank you.
No question.
All right, thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 9B Measure LL Facility Bond Micro Workshop.
Okay, so we are back. Our team has been very busy working on our different facility improvement projects. And we have a quick update. We also have a couple action items. So as we always do, we're going to give you some details here, and then you will vote as later in the agenda. Maybe you want to take away?
I will do a quick update on the financials. It's been a few months, but as far as our project estimates have gone, they haven't changed. Our commitments, those are legal purchase orders, local requirements to our vendors. We have increased by about $1 million, approximately 960,000 is for Vista High. That is our current large project that is in play. And then there was roughly about $150,000 because Vista Magnet is our other project that's currently under construction. And then as far as actuals to date, we have paid an additional $6.5 million. As I mentioned, Vista High, our most significant project that is underway. We paid approximately $4.7 million since the end of February until today. Vista Magnet, about $500,000, and then RBV, our third project that's under construction, is we paid about $870,000 since the end of February. You'll notice on that far right-hand column, there are 3 projects in green. We have trued up our 3 current projects that we completed, Lake, Madison, and Rancho Minerva, and so that is roughly over $700,000 that is under budget. And that is the financial activities since their last meeting. I'm going to turn it over. Grace.
Thank you, Amy. Good evening. All right, I'm excited. We're continuing to chug along. As Amy had mentioned, we're moving quick on Vista High, and as you're driving by, you see continuing to go up. All right, so what also ended up happening as an impact of rain, impact of the structural steel contractor defaulting, the project actually needed to extend the time. And so when you have consultants that are hired, that the district is required to hire, extension of time of the project impacts them as well. And so we are bringing to the board for approval later on for some of our consultants that the district is required to hire to oversee and make sure and ensure that we're compliant with labor compliance. That's what we hired GAFCON for, is to monitor all that so that we are in line with what is required of our district. And so because the original contract date has now pushed out, this is to bring back the additional amount that we require for GAFCON.
And Grace, to help the board understand, how do you come up with the additional money? Is it a ratio? How do you, when something does go long, is it just, do they just submit a proposal, or is like there a ratio?
So they basically based their extension of time according to the rates that we had approved previously when the project was put in place. So they utilized that same rate and then just multiplied that by the amount of time that needs to be extended. So it's not, it's just using what's already been approved in terms of the rates, Same thing with the inspector of record for DSA. We are required by law to have a third-party inspection company to make sure that everything is built in compliance with DSA. And so on this one, we had a scoreboard that we added to the project later on. And because the Vista High new buildings are already in DSA under review, we didn't want to slow that down. And so the scoreboard became its own mini project. And so when it becomes its own mini project under a new DSA number, you also have to have DSA inspections that are required, because this new scoreboard, as you know, is really big and huge. And there's safety factors that are in it, especially when it's going to be where it is, which is part of the stadium, right? And because it's such a huge structure, it has to be inspected and monitored that it's installed per the approved drawings. And so this is the request to have inspection services, the IOR, for that scoreboard project. And then the same thing for special inspection, because you need a lab of record that are specialized. For example, there's concrete footings that are required to hold those posts up that hold the scoreboard up.
same thing is, we require additional services for that scoreboard. Any questions? Okay. RBV also was impacted, in regards to, that one, the walls had to be rebuilt. To make sure that it's in compliance, and because it had to be rebuilt, that took some time. Also, some rain impact also added time for this project that got pushed out. And same thing, same rates were used, multiplied by the additional time required, and this is the additional labor compliance services that would have been required, but they basically said, you know what? No cost time adjustment, they're basically not adding anything, so they're leaving it as is on that project. Vista Magnet Middle School. This one, there were a lot of happy things that we found, and I'm being, sorry. Unfortunately, there are existing conditions that we could not have accounted for. And one of them is soils, all the unforeseen items that we discovered, additional lab inspections for the lab of record that were required to cover all those things. And so this is an increase for their services that we require. And the project schedule also has been impacted through the rain as well, and all these unforeseens. So additional time is needed to complete this project at Vista Magnet. Okay, Bouvier reconstruction. We just wanted to give everybody an update on the timeline of when to expect things. And so we have the existing pool that was approved. 4 contractors are in the pool. And we basically are waiting, and this Friday we'll be receiving their proposals for Bouvier. And so that's what you see. And then tonight, we're also going to be talking about the process for expanding the scope of a PLA. And then next facilities meeting, which is the 17th, we're going to be bringing back to the board for an approval for Bouvier. Contractor for that, because we wanted a contractor on board to start performing pre-construction services, which we had talked about at the last board meeting. And then in June 2024, next year, we will be bringing back to the board a GMP for the final project. How much it would cost from that contractor? Any questions?
From this time the project is approved, what's the completion?
It will be 2 years.
Already approved, right?
Well, the
Yeah,
GMP,
for what we do.
the GMP, fall 26 is what we think.
Yeah, 2 years, yeah. So, back to Amy.
So, tonight we're gonna have a discussion about the PLA. So currently, Bouvier is not part of the PLA agreement. When we negotiated, the initial PLA agreement approximately a year and a half ago, Bouvier was already under contract with a general contractor, so that's why it wasn't included in the PLA. And so we are now currently going through a process to contract with a new general contractor. And so that leads to the discussion that project is no longer under contract. So for the board to have the discussion whether, and we provided 3 options regarding the potential possibilities. The first one is option A, which is where we are currently, which is no PLA. It would still remain a lease back. As I mentioned, it's the current process, and that's where we are at this point. As Grace mentioned, we are going through a secondary RFP process with our pool of contractors. And so we've provided a list of additional questions and for the pool to respond, and we'll receive those responses back tomorrow. So we are currently on the timeline. So moving on to option B and C. So there are 2 potential options that we could do with the MLA or the PLA. One is a very simple modification to what we call the project list. How we designed the PLA agreement is that we did an exhibit that was attached to the agreement itself, and it listed the projects. So there are 4 projects on there. And so this would allow for easy modification in the future, because one of the provisions in the PLA agreement is after 2 years, we would revisit it potentially to add any additional projects as an example. And so the board could choose to do that simple amendment, that timeline, 1 to 2 months, depending on the availability of the building trades and how quickly we can move through that process. That, as I mentioned, is just a simple modification to the project exhibit list. Option C would be to open up the PLA and revisit any other additional terms. An example would be, we've got the percentage of tiers, local hire, North County, county, and so revisiting any of those types of terms, in addition to potentially the projects that are included in that. That would take a little bit longer of a process, depending how many sessions and availabilities of both building trades and the district team to meet. So it could take anywhere from 3 to 8 months. Probably not the same amount of time as creating the first one, because that's where you develop the initial terms, and this would just be revisiting a potential modification. And so depending on how the board wants to proceed, we would then engage with the building trades. And so that would require setting a series of dates for both parties to meet. Plan B ideally could be accomplished hopefully in 1 to 2 sessions, because that would be just modifying that project list. As I mentioned, there's 4 projects on there currently. Option C would be that a greater number of sessions that would be required, the back and forth. And then once both parties agree, then there's that time that would be needed for the building trades to execute signatures on their side. All of the building trades do have to sign that agreement, so it does take a little bit of time for that routing, and then we would bring it back to the board for approval. And then at the same time, we would be initiating those GMP efforts. That's when we really need to have that process, because whoever the contractor is that is selected for the project, they need to know how to do the GMP. So is it PLA or is it not PLA? So that when they go to do the bidding, they know how to run that effort.
And when we have Sean, Dr. Butcher come up and talk about the active items. Thank you.
So for the, we have 2 sets of action items. For the first action item, Grace is presented on changes that will be within the consent agenda for this evening. And those will permit us to continue. Again, we can't tell you the full scope of where the funding will come from for those items. So in many cases, they'll be back charged back to the contractor for errors that were made or other items. As we covered in a previous meeting, we back charge because there has to be clear lines of communication that our inspectors of records are never paid by our contractors, they're paid by us. So we keep that clear. And then in terms of looking at PLA scope, what we need is we require a direction, so that way we can explore what our options are moving forward, whether it be option A, B, or C. Those would help guide our work as we move forward. It's important to know if we're going to be proceeding with the PLA, so that way we can convey that information to the retained contractor as soon as they're on board. The reason for that is it has to do with their thinking on how they might strategize for future project listings and how they would be going about looking at what the options would be for future contracting. So it's an important piece of information for them to have. Everything doesn't have to be in place, as we've stated before, all the way until the GMP, which is still a ways away, but the sooner that information is known, the better it is for the contractor and for them to be able to work through each of those items.
Thank you, Dr. Butcher.
Thank you.
I'll hand it back to our board president.
All right, so we have the consent items right now for the classroom buildings, DAFCON extension services, but we just have to have 3 out of 4 for consent.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. You have those there. Any feedback on the presentation? And then in a moment, we'll get to your consent items and your action items. But any feedback just in general on the presentation, anything we should be thinking about or including that you would like us to?
I have a question on page 111.
Okay.
The asterisk at the bottom.
I'm going back to right on doing. So that's 15. There we go.
The 8%.
Sure. So the asterisk at the bottom is one that has been advised by consultancy. When we talk about a market factor increase, anytime you engage in different contracting strategies, there can be a percentage increase to the amount of a project. It's not a guaranteed amount, it is a projected amount. So the current projection is that for contracts or for districts that are engaged in PLAs, that because of various market factors, the number of times you might have to rebid, that there are additional reporting requirements when you do a PLA. So we have to contract different people to make sure that we're complying with the PLA. When you add all of those factors together, projects inside of San Diego County are currently accounting that PLA projects cost about 8% more overall to execute. So that is what the asterisk states, is in transparency, is that is what the current market factor is. That market factor is being used by multiple school districts at this time as a way of cost calculating out for the future.
I have a question. So the three items, the Rancho Minerva and the items that were PLA, they came under budget, right? Ours?
Well, we have certain ones that came under budget, and as we presented in a previous meeting, we have ones that came in under budget and ones that came in over budget. The ones that came in under budget didn't come in under budget because they were or were not PLA. They came in under budget because the project was de-scoped. For the ones that came in over budget, they didn't come in over budget because they were PLA. They came in over budget because we increased the scope. So there wasn't really a correlation to PLA as far as being under budget or over budget. The other issue that was discussed is that each one of those projects were, to be respectful, relatively small in size to other projects. So for PLA projects, typically when they become smaller and smaller, they have a harder time attracting more contractor pools in there. So it was not related to being a PLA or not, was our conclusion upon analysis. It was directly correlated to project size either increasing or decreasing.
Dr. Wilshire, give them an example of D-scope so they can have a little bit more concrete understanding of what we meant when we say D-scope.
Sure, absolutely. And to play off of the term concrete for de-scope versus increased scope. For de-scoping, we had a project where we determined that in the course of that project, an entire portion or building was not appropriate to that project. It had mold in it and that we needed to work on that separately. So we removed that entire structure out and we took that up in another project. That was a D-scope. So that reduced the amount that we were going to spend on that project significantly. For cost increase, that was at Lake Elementary. And an example of an increase, to go back to the superintendent's point of concrete examples, was concrete at Rancho Minerva Middle School. The amount of concrete that we poured increased dramatically because of a variety of factors, including learning about some of the underground utilities, but also learning what our options might be that we were there. So again, to reiterate, Rancho Minerva was not over because of PLA. That was over because we increased the scope. That's normal. Lake Elementary was not below because Lake Elementary would have been below regardless because we de-scoped the work significantly.
So I remember in a previous meeting, we talked a little bit about the fact that lease back gave us many of the same benefits of PLA. Could you recap that for us, please?
Sure. So what we did was create an analysis between the two, and I'll invite Grace to come in and speak to some of this as well. Some of it had to do with looking at skilled workforce. Some of it had to look with the ways that were there. Part of the discussion that was there is to understand the sequencing of events inside of California contracting. PLAs existed pre-lease-leaseback. Lease-leaseback is a somewhat recent development. And PLAs and lease-leasebacks in some ways sought to address similar issues regarding skilled and trained workforces and having items that are included in there. So there is some similarities and overlaps between the two. Now, some of the definitions change inside of PLAs and lease back for some of those key items. For example, skilled and trained workforce it's an exclusive term inside of PLA to unionize labor. Skilled and trained workforce, there are other options inside of the state of California for apprenticeship that don't require that. And lease back takes that into consideration. So that's some of the overlap. Grace, would you like to share
Yeah,
some more?
sure. The other things that Dr. Loesch had mentioned is the public contracting code also has come a long way too. In terms of prevailing wage, right? Making sure that everyone is paid at a fair wage, which is what the basis of a union would be, is to make sure that the workers are looked after in regards to their prevailing wage, in regards to the hours that they work. But public contracting code and lease back covers all of that. Same thing with making sure that skilled workers, that you have skilled workers working on the project. And so that's what the skilled trained workforce as a requirement prerequisite for a lease back contract that a district executes, is that you have to have a specific ratio of apprentice that graduated from a certified, a recognized apprenticeship program. The PLA actually waives a lot of that if you sign PLA. But skilled and trained workforce, you absolutely have to show that you've met those requirements, and they're actually higher. Hopefully that explains.
And then my only other question is, back on slide 15, the timeline, if I'm understanding correctly, is like the fastest way to a new, completed, ready to occupy Bobier Elementary would be option A. And option B adds 1 to 2 months to that timeline, and then option C would almost push it to the following school year, correct?
No, not
Okay.
correct. Allow me to clarify. First, Grace brought up some important points, which is why we always call Grace up. One point we failed to convey is, again, being a proud Californian on these topics, back when I started in this, none of these things were requirements in public contracting code, including prevailing wage. And I'm really proud of the things that were made. The one we are failing to mention is inside of public contracting code. Minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses are also not listed as well, which is something that is listed in PLA. No, the intention of the slide is not to indicate that there would be an increase of time to Bobier or any other project. The purpose of demonstrating under A, B, and C is A represents the status quo. We're doing that now. B would require about 1 to 2 months from now to complete. So it has no bearing on that Bobier project. It's not an additional 2 months to Bobier. And then if option C were explored, it would probably take 3 to 8 months, but also that's inside of the Bobier window. As stated, and as I think Grace presented accurately, it's the GMP date in 2024 that all of this has to be finalized and voted and settled by that.
Right, so if you go to the timeline, Dr. Dole, if that's all right, this slide, yeah, right here.
Okay.
So between now, as Dr. Loesch had mentioned, between now, today, and June 2024, we need the long runway, right? If the board decides to add Bobier as a project or negotiate a bigger expansive list of projects, that's the timeline between now and before June 2024 that we would have to work with. And if we go past a certain time, like if you backwards map, then if we past, if we do not make a decision on letting us explore, can you tell us what to explore? Whether we start exploring now, and then that gives us time to come back to you to get, so that you can make it an absolute decision within hopefully this year.
Another way to think about it is, if in 2 weeks, we bring a contractor back and you approve that contractor, the sooner the contractor knows that this project will be a PLA project, the more effective and efficient he can work with the team to develop our plans. However, it will not technically impact the start and finish of the construction for Bobier. It would still likely be finished in 26 at some point. We hope August of 26, but that's what we think. So the conversation we're having with you tonight is that sooner we identify whether or not it's going to be a PLA, the more efficient we can work with the contractor.
And if you don't mind, I also would like to add some more information to Trustee Smithfield's question on the next slide.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, yeah, right here. So the asterisks, as Dr. Lotion was talking about, the market factors, 8%. You also have to take into account how many contractors that can bid PLA projects, because right now the pool is small. And we are competing against Chula Vista, San Diego Unified, and quite a lot of school districts who have huge projects out there. And so that's something you also have to just think about globally, is the competition, because the less competition you have, the higher the number goes up. That's the reason why you have 8% market factor. It also takes that into account, because when you have a limited pool of people, their number is going to go up. Plus, if other school districts are going to be bidding at the same time as Beauvier, people are going to look and say, which one am I going to bid for? And then if the contractor that we choose begs them, because they have a good relationship, begs the subcontractors out there to bid, some of the subcontractors may say, okay, I'll just throw you a number, just to give you a number. So that's just the reality of the environment we're in right now.
Grace, what's the amount of the Boulder project?
So right now, from last month's presentation, we're at 65.4 million.
Yeah, I think the amount of that project, we're not gonna have trouble, as we did with like the small projects that we did. I mean, it's a lot harder to get a PLA project with a $2 million project, because like people are seeing that, and it's a small project versus a $60 million project. But I think on the other side, you know, part of the reason we voted for that is to see the return on investment in our community, and with, you know, how we create more of a workforce locally that's gonna create good jobs long term. And hopefully, you know, we do the project in the future, we can look at that to create that pipeline. I know that, you know, the data that you shared, Dr. Losher, was definitely a start to seeing that. But I'm like, once again, we're talking about projects that were equivalent to less than $10 million. And so now with the $60 million, we can definitely make a dent in that. At the same time, you know, this is one of the recommendations was to look at a project at scale. And this is one of those projects that is coming down the pipeline. I'm not sure what other projects we have, but I think this is a unique opportunity to make that happen.
Yeah. All right, so for me, I go back to wanting to have a workforce from the tier 1 zip codes, which means the folks here in North County, including our Vista High graduates, including veterans. And so that's really important. And I don't think that the small projects that we had were able to, you know, bring that type of demand out for this workforce. Additionally, I am hoping that if this board does agree on adding Beauvier to the scope of the additional project labor or the project labor agreement, that we would have more apprenticeship programs, opportunities for our high school seniors, and giving them an opportunity to earn a wage and learn a trade that would give them a middle class job. So again, I don't think the small projects that we had facilitated that, and I believe that this bigger project would. So that's my perspective. All right, so.
We're ready to move on. You'll have those items later on in the agenda to talk about.
Okay.
We're ready for our last.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, I thought you did. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm so
have
sorry.
a question, and I really wasn't gonna have a comment, but I do,
Okay.
of course. And I'm not quite sure what that comment is, but with all this, since the beginning of time, you kind of introduced me to this world. And yeah, go forward, it makes sense for the exact reason that you were saying. And then we got the bond and the PLA, and we started all of our work. And so this is just a thought. It's not like I'm like, oh, here's how I feel, just because what everybody said. So we can look at, are we gonna get the workforce from here? Is it gonna work? Because I thought that was one of the things that they said they had a hard time getting, and we weren't very successful, but maybe on a bigger project we would. But I also, my other concern is, because we know we've sat in all these facilities workshops, a lot of them, and we need a lot of money to fix what's wrong in the school. So when I saw that 8% there, I'm like, well, now where did that come in? So in I'm torn. You know, like, okay, I get this side here, but at the same time, our kids need better facilities. I mean, you've been around, and I'll tell you. And we know how the money is, and we know it's running out. Which means we have to look for some more. And do we want to? I don't know.
Can I add on? I calculated that 8% of a $65.4 million budget is $5.2 million. And I think we can do a lot of necessary repairs at our school facilities with $5 million. So I kind of am landing with you, Rosemary, in terms of, you know, I appreciate the ideals and I think it's appropriate. I think the lease back arrangement might give us some of those advantages. I mean, not baked in as hard as a PLA, but I'm wondering if we can afford a PLA. And my retort to that would be like all of the problems we've had as a high school that were not PLA programs, with our contractors, the obstacles we ran into at RDV, where things had to be rebuilt, not PLA. Do we think, would a PLA have changed that?
Would a PLA have changed that incident that was just bad?
I'm not sure we're in a position where we can actually say that. I don't think it would be fair to the contractors in the process. It would be very difficult to contribute that.
And I've sat in on, not all of them, but, because there's a million of
Yeah.
them. All the meetings with all the contractors, all the builders, all this. And. Yeah, I didn't. The problems they've come across were kind of beyond their control, like it, BMMS. Nothing really that we had going, it was just, things happen, and, the CTE building, I thought that was just one of those freaky things, and, it happened, so I didn't put, I mean, cause I was ready to, this whole time, ready to be like, see. And now, but my whole thing right now, bottom line is money, cause without the money, we can't do anything. We can't even be safe.
Well, Vista Magnet is a PLA project. Vista Magnet is a PLA project. That was identified as one of them.
Right. And so they did have a lot of issues. I wouldn't say it was because of PLA, right? It's just because that's what happened. So
The oldest school in our district.
Oh, it's more because of the PLA. That wouldn't be fair to them.
No.
All right, well, we can discuss it at the action item there. And then,
Yeah,
have a
sure.
additional conversation about that.
Very good.
All right. One more is measure LL or, okay, and 9D, demographer report. But weren't we supposed to?
Oh, when I sit long enough, it tightens up.
Oh, what's there's.
Not there, there. No, there's consent items on the slide. The action items are later. The consent items are the extension.
We're good. We're almost there.
It's not getting consent now, but when you say,
No, you're not getting us consent now.
okay,
We're all good.
got it. Proceed.
So tonight I'm here to provide a high-level overview of our demographer's reports. We will be scheduling a deeper dive into the report when we have the full board at a future meeting. Tonight, we wanted to give an overview so that we were able to provide the data, because we know a lot of demographers report every year is a popular item, so that we can use that for future planning. I wanted to first start with what's in a demographer's report and what's not. So the demographer Davis Demographics, we've used their firm for years. They do an analysis every year based on residential students. It's not an enrollment study, it's a residential study. And so when you look through the report, you may notice that you don't see Mission Vista, you don't see Casita, Vapa, or the two middle magnet schools. That's because the report is based on our residential home schools.
And so also what's not in there is any inter-district enrollment that comes in from outside the district, because it's purely based on our students that live here and where they attend. And so other factors that they use to do their analysis, obviously, they assume the 12th grade going out. They take grades 1 through 11 and move them up a grade level based on some mobility factors that I'll go through in a minute. And then looking at the kinder, they take the historical birth rates. They also look at what new development is occurring in the district. And then that last piece is the mobility factors, which is movement between schools. And so on the next slide, you'll see this is just a graphical representation. These are all the pieces that are part of the analysis that go into the data sets that create those projections, that birth factor, the mobility factors, your student yield factors. What that student yield factor is there is an average number of, so when you have new developments, whether it's a multifamily unit or a single family unit, there's an average number of students that it's generated. And so when they look at how much development is going on, depending on what type of unit, they apply those student yield factors for that enrollment growth potential. So here are just 3 quick visuals that that are within the report itself. For 22-23, they start with our enrollment as of CalPADS Day, which is or CBEDS Day. It's the first Wednesday in October, 18,830. They remove the out-of-district students, they remove the adult students over 18, and then any of our special ed students that attend specialized programs. Does that starting figure of 18,830 include our 5 magnet schools? It does, and so if they are a resident, they are counted, but they don't do the analysis at the impact to the magnet schools. Okay.
So let me give you one example of that. There are some students who go to our magnet schools that aren't from our district.
Of course.
So it would not include them.
Thanks. And then you'll see in the middle is that the map of where the pockets of development are occurring. You see larger sections in the northwest section and corner of the district and the southeast corner, and then there's a little bit of color sporadically within the district. On the right side is birth factors, and so just to spend a minute on grounding on what that data is. And so you'll see birth year 2005. They enroll in kinder in 2010. If you look at that first row, and you'll see district-wide birth rates for approximately 3,500 students. And so we are actually seeing a growth of 120%. So you'll see the next several years, our growth was increasing. So over 100%, and you can see in that last column, if they were born in 2005, the impact to our school year of 2010-11. And so if you go down further, you'll notice in the yellow, our birth rates, the percent change is actually decreasing. And so that's that percentage is a comparison of the current year to the previous year. And so if you look below the base year, you'll see that we're declining in birth rate. So we're only about 95% of the previous year. And then you'll see that impact on the 28. So birth year 2018, all the way to the right, that's impacting our kinders in the 23-24 school year. So that's how you read that chart. Other factors, so as I mentioned, the mobility factors, that's how residential students move within schools. So how to read this? As an example, we have 100 students. If you see a mobility factor of 1.03, that means those kinder students now are 103 students in first grade because you're getting a 1.03% mobility growth at that school. And so you'll notice our kinders moving to first grade. We actually have about a third that are growing, a third that are flat at 1.0, and a third that are declining. And then you look from your first to approximately your 5th graders becoming 6th grader. There is a lot of red in that area, and that's reflecting the declining enrollment at the schools and at the grade levels. You'll notice we do get a bubble of greenness from 8th grade to 9th grade. So they leave at middle school, that's 5th to 6th grade, and then you see that growth coming back into the high school. And then you see that 11th to 12th, that senior year, you see a lot of green in that year. So what this reflects is district-wide TK-12. Blue is the elementary, orange is the middle, green is the high school. And so you can see the fourth column, that is the current year. You'll see that's the 17,027 students. And then you'll see 3 years prior to that is our history, and then the next 7 years is that projection. And so this chart gives you just the elementary, and so you'll notice orange is the current year. Over the next 7 years, they are projecting a decrease of approximately 10% over the next 7 years. This is a slightly different view of our TK5, which shows by school. On the left-hand side in blue, the schools that are decreasing over that projected period of time from this year to 2029. And then the school in green is the one school that is growing during that projection time. And so moving on to middle school, similar concept, you can see here that based on our current year, going out 7 years, we are projected to drop about 23% or approximately 900 students. High schools, similar concepts, a little bit slower decline, roughly 19% or approximately 1,000 student loss. And then this gives the average high school class size. And so red is Vista High and blue is Rancho Buena Vista. And so you can see the current year, we lost from the Vista High, we lost about 34 students in that average class size. Rancho Buena Vista lost about 60. And then when you move to the far right, Vista High is projected in that 7 years to be down approximately 129 students from where we are now. And RBB, approximate loss of 97 students on that average class size. And so that is the conclusion, very high level, brief. It's a very long report, it's very detailed, approximately 200-page report. Half of that report is the detail by grade by school on how they completed their projections. Trustee Kelly, any discussion item, comments?
I know. Thank you. We want to share this with our asset management committee. Is it the presentation that will be shared? Because
the full report.
The full report. I think since there are places where magnet enrollment is included and places where it is not, it would probably be beneficial to indicate which charts are inclusive of that information. Because it is a little confusing to assess. Where I know it was, I made the point of asking, was it included in that top number? But I'm assuming like slides 9 and 10, those are non-magnet middle and high schools.
Those are residential students, not inter-district and not if you go back to that original slide that does the breakdown of the 17,027. All the following charts are a result of the analysis of that net 17,027. So if they live within the district boundaries, and not one of those two categories, adult ed and the special ed, they're captured in those charts.
And they roll up into those numbers,
Yeah.
But for example, slide 8, they're not represented there.
Correct, because those are considered the residential schools.
So that's what I'm pointing
Yes.
out, is that it's confusing because it flips between including magnet students when they're within district residential boundaries. It counts them in the aggregate, but it doesn't necessarily reflect the full
Yeah.
picture at the school
Yeah,
level.
so if they attend Casita, but they live in the leadership boundaries, they would be on this slide. And so they developed their study areas and map them to the schools. I'll get clarification from the demographer. Actually, that's a perfect question when the demographer comes back on how he reflects.
Well, because that makes me question then like the numbers on slide 8, are they accurate if they're counting a leadership academy student who's actually a Casita student?
So they live in the leadership area. It's not
But
like.
it doesn't reflect the kids at that school.
Correct, they are,
It's
yes,
resident.
yes. So when you're looking at declining enrollment, for example, like Grapevine, is that, like, what confidence do we have that we know that that's what's happening at that school versus there's just a lot of magnet kids who live near Grapevine?
So
Is
we,
it,
I'm listening, and I think what we could do, let us take that back and tease that out. I understand what you're asking for. We could add some slides to this to give data around magnet schools. One example of the slide that we could develop, we've done this before, you and I have done this before at the magnet school committee, is shown all of our elementary schools and the percentage of students from each of those that go to one of the magnet schools. That would be a great slide to show. We could include the magnet schools on this slide, and what you would see theoretically is it would be at the 0 line, because it would sit, because they have a maximum number of students that apply. It would sit at the size that it's always been, and based on historical perspective, it's always full.
Yeah.
So it would always be 0. It wouldn't be positive, wouldn't be lower. I'm thinking of Casita as an example.
Right.
And so it'd probably be a little tick on the lower side, because it starts at fully, and then some kids don't end up coming, so it's a little under enrolled, but not by much. 5, 10.
Yeah, and I know it's like a tricky nuance, it's just.
So we could do that.
way-
We'll come up with a couple more slides and we'll run it past the board in a Friday letter, but I think we can address your concerns with this. It's my understanding with regard to the demographer is they're black and white. They base it on resident, and that's the only way for them to be accurate. They base it on residents, and most districts don't have magnet schools, so they don't design their methodology around the magnet school. But we can add some slides to, I think, to address your issue.
Yeah, and I think we have a significant enough percentage of our student population is not being accurately reflected here, so that's my concern.
Well, and the purpose of us, Amy and I wanted this to come to you tonight, though, because we need to get that feedback. As you know, I always like to make sure the board is informed before we bring it to anyone else. And this is appropriate information to bring to the asset management committee. So that I appreciate the feedback tonight. We want to make sure we get it right. And so all of the board members giving us feedback on it now helps us better prepare for the asset management committee.
And that's a good point, because we actually have 2 different projections. We have one that is the demographer study, which is purely based on residential, as Dr. Earl mentioned, very black and white. The other one is the staffing. And so the staffing, we have to take into consideration the inter-district transfers, because that's determines how much staff you put on there. There is a component of the mobility factor. So what's that cohort rate of kinders to first to second? And then we have to layer on that projection, because part of that enrollment does come from either other schools or other districts. So there are 2 different projection studies. Am I remembering correctly? We have up to 30% of our students are enrolled at a magnet school?
I don't want to give you the wrong number.
Yeah, I'm probably.
It's a fairly high number. The overwhelming majority of the students at our magnet schools are students from our district.
Right.
Overwhelming majority.
Capped at 10%.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
So, yeah, we need to make sure we're accurately reflecting that for the purpose of, people who are new to the data, making big important recommendations based on it.
But the important thing I think for the board to know tonight is this report is a demographer report. So by definition, they would never include magnet schools because that's not the methodology that they use. So we have to bring additional slides to the table, for which I'll work with Dr. Losher and Amy on, so that we can enhance the report. But for the purpose of tonight, we're simply reporting on what the demographer said. And that's important because that's a third-party objective perspective on where we are as a district.
Trustee Smithfield, any questions, comments? Trustee Vargas?
Amy, what is the demographer state for reasons why we are seeing declining enrollment?
Several of the factors that we've discussed, and it's similar trends across California. The biggest one being the declining birth rates, cost of living. The East County and like Riverside County, San Bernardino are actually seeing an uptick in some of their areas because it becomes too expensive to live by the coast, and naturally they migrate. So they're migrating east, or they're moving out of states, and then you're just seeing lower birth rates. And then it depends on your makeup of your housing. Are you a lot of rental, mainly housing, or mainly owners? And so sometimes what happens is when their kids graduate, they stay in their house and they're not moving out. So when you don't have that turnover, that's part of the reason why you're declining, is because the couples are not selling their houses to younger couples that didn't then come in, have children and attend our schools. And so that's part of it as well. So there's several different factors. And as you saw on the development side, a few years ago, we did have a few more pockets. In this report, particularly, it is a little bit less than what we've seen in the past. And so that's also part of it, because there comes a point where your area, there's just either it becomes fully saturated, like on the coast. You'll get onesie twosies, where they scrape and rebuild, but you don't see those larger developments occurring because you hit that point where the soil can't be built on.
Yeah, and I remember seeing this report like 4 or 5 years ago, and it's like for every 4 units that we're building, we're getting one child that's.
Yeah, it's like-
space.
yeah.
And with, it's expensive, and so young families are thinking twice about having kids, and in some cases, having a dog instead of a child. But even that's expensive.
I know too, it's expensive.
But it's not helping our school district in some, this.
Not in law school.
Bring it back, to our previous discussion, like good job, means that people can stay in their community, that they can afford to live here, rather than be pushed out to another part of our state, and it's great if you're in Riverside, no, nothing bad against Riverside, as Nenita here.
She's driving back.
But I'd rather have, our families be able to afford to be here, rather than go somewhere else.
All right, well, I'll hand it back to our board president. We are finished with our last presentation.
All right, so do you guys need a break? Or we good?
That'd be good.
All right, let's take a 9-minute break. Be back
So the item here that they're both consolidated is 15E. This is an action item. 15E.
It's 15, okay, 15E.
It's not.
And we are live.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and resume our regular board meeting. And the next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. Agenda items 10 to 15, all matters listed on the consent calendar are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, the staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar. Superintendent and staff recommend approval of all items minus we pulled 15E.
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar with the omission of item 15E.
So moved. Second.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by trustee Smith. We're having super yelling. All in favor of approving the consent calendar item 10, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Then the next item on the agenda is 16A. We're going to ratify and approve purchase orders. And
Make a
President?
motion.
yes,
We pulled it from the consent calendar to table it or to discuss it.
16?
And was it 10, 14?
No, it was
15E.
15E, which was an award of a contract for a bid.
So we're pulling it all together. It doesn't exist on the calendar now.
Got it. Just wanted to get that clarity. It's something when we pull it from the consent calendar, we pull it to discuss.
Yeah.
No, we're pulling it to table it. We will bring it back to you in June.
Perfect.
And that was the staff requested to have it,
Perfect.
not a trustee.
That's confirmed.
Got it. All right, so 16A, ratify and approve purchase orders.
I make a motion that we ratify and approve purchase orders, item 16A.
So moved, seconded by
Second.
trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving 16A, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next item on the agenda is 16B, approve the first reading of a revised board policy 6163.2 animals at school.
And before Rachel starts, the board always reserves the right to waive the second reading. It's your decision. This is an action item, so that's up to you. Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, thank you. So the attached board policy reflects the direction of the board to present a revision that would include facility animals and therapy animals on our school campuses. So the highlighted pieces, in red, there were 2 paragraphs that were added. One that identified the service animals. So once we put the facility and the therapy, that would be distinguished between the 2. And then it also directs the superintendent to develop an administrative regulation that outlines the rules and procedures, which we're currently working on.
So the process for board policies and administrative regulations is before we finalize an administrative regulation, we need direction from the board on the board policies. So as soon as this policy, you give us direction on this policy, we will finalize the admin reg and then we will share that with the board at a later date.
The admin reg or the board policy?
The admin reg.
Admin reg.
We need you to give us direction on the board policy.
So did you see the, I'm sorry, the additions?
I have it right here.
Yep, I moved to waive the second reading and approve this board policy.
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving 16G, say aye.
Aye.
Right, any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next item on the agenda is 16C, approve the adoption of Great Mind Science PhD grades K to 5.
I think I've got to bring up the slide deck.
And I'm just going to do a quick introduction of our retiree. Lori Higley. This is her last presentation to you. Until I steal her to come back again next year and help me.
She's gonna have a cow.
I mean, So, Lori will do our presentation for our science pilot.
Lori has been an absolute trooper. She has led the adoptions over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And they have gone so smoothly. And what I'm most proud of for Lori and her adoptions is that every adoption committee is standing room only. We have, all the teachers are 100% committed. And that's important because it represents the authentic voice of our teachers. If you remember, not too long ago, about 5 years ago, we tried an adoption and the board actually decided to table it because it did not represent the voice of the teachers. And Lori has been very effective in getting teachers to the table, giving feedback on it, and having an authentic process. So I want to thank you for that.
Of course, my pleasure. Good evening, board, Dr. Doyle. So I'm here to proudly talk about the science pilot and adoption. Here's a little bit of background. Currently, our current science program is not aligned to the next generation science standards. So this fall, we assembled a team of K-5 teachers from elementary schools. And as we always do, we have the San Diego County Office of Education lead that process. Next slide. You see a brief timeline here. There was a little bit of a hiccup from August 2021 to that fall of 2022. We had to, as you know, pilot the social studies program. Ours went out of print, so we had to put off the science. And then you see that we did. Then you see we did that pilot, the science pilot through the year. We just ended it in March. Okay, so 2 programs were chosen, PhD Science and FOSS. And for many months of many experiments and talking to teachers and things, PhD was voted as a science program that teachers would like to adopt. So here's the next steps. Of course, I'm bringing this to you for approval tonight. Our wonderful Penny will order the materials in July. We'll do some teacher training in August. And then, of course, we'll have ongoing training throughout the year. There's our pilot teachers. They got to do lots of experiments before they took that program into their classrooms, lots of collaboration. There's our students actively engaged in hands-on science. I would like to thank all those teachers because they give up some time after school to meet once a month. And then, of course, they have to learn and train about 2 programs and try those in the classroom. There's a fiscal impact for a 7-year adoption cycle.
Let us know if we're going too fast. All right.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yeah, it's kit-based.
And we fill them for the teachers.
So we're talking about that right now. The one nice thing about this program is they will send all the refill materials. And so we currently have the Science Resource Center, which we're talking about. Those materials would go there. And then our classified employee would refill those kits and send them out to the teachers.
I have a question. Was there a difference of opinion with the primary teachers versus the intermediate teachers in terms of what they preferred?
No, not really. There was a lot of great discussion about both programs, and really it came down to everyone just agreeing that PhD met the requirements that they were looking for in the classroom.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a great process.
Any feedbacks or questions?
Oh, I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have to move to approve
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
We have to move to approve it. Can I get a motion to approve 16C, the adoption of grade 9 science
I'll make a
PhD?
motion to approve.
So
the
moved.
science adoption.
I second.
Moved by trustee Smithfield and seconded by trustee Kelly. All in favor of approving 16C, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is 16E, approve and ratify the tentative collective bargaining agreement between the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association.
We are happy to announce that the tentative agreement that was made between the district and VTA on March 24th was ratified by the members on April 27th. This is a total compensation value of 7.04%, which is a salary increase of 6.07, benefits equal to 0.23%. And then also compacting the teacher salary schedule to 25 years, which is approximately 0.74 of that 7.04%. Total cost of the tentative agreement is $9.4 million. Attached are all of the tentative agreements and the final contract, as well as all of the appropriate salary schedules.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16E, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That the motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is 16E, CIF application for new multi-school membership.
Thanks for being here, Diane.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
So just give them a quick idea of what they're voting on tonight.
Okay, so CIF San Diego and actually throughout the state gives non-member schools an opportunity to connect with a member school in the same district. So we have Vista Visions Academies, our independent study school, and we are proposing that students who attend Vista Visions, which is a non-member CIF school, would be able to participate or try out for CIF sports at our member schools if it's their school of residence. So if you have a student who is a Vista Visions student and their school of residence is RVV, they would be able to go to RVV, and we'd have a process for them to be able to understand what programs are offered. We'd have communication systems to let them know the different sports that are there, the timelines. The Vista Visions administrative staff would keep track of eligibility and all the different things that they need to do to clear their athletic eligibility for that. So it's an opportunity for them to participate in sports, get connected with our district through something we haven't done before. This one's called the new multi-school membership status, and it's something that we can reapply for year after year. I think it's something that kind of brings a little bit more access to some of the great programs that we have, and trying to, work on that equity piece that we always talk about as part of our values here. So open to any questions that you might have. Yes.
So. Mission Vista, is that a CIF? How does that?
It is a CIF member school. It's a magnet school, so it's an application there for the student. It's not a school of residence for any of our students.
So if they wanted to play football, they could go to their school of residence to play?
Correct.
Vista?
And that has happened.
Mhm. So they could play track. It's, we're proposing every program that the school offers. Charter schools, no, it would only be for Vista Unified students. Some of the discussions that I've had, a couple of people familiar with athletics actually thought that this might help us retain some students who may leave to go to a charter to participate in athletics. Because of the flexible independent study schedule, they could still play sports with this agreement, and that would, we would retain those students.
So there's two kinds of charter schools. One is called a dependent charter, for which we have 5. And there's an independent charter, scratch that. Independent charter, meaning they have no affiliation with our school district. We just have oversight over them. We have 5 of those. And then there's a dependent charter school. And the dependent charter school likely would be able to be a part of this because we have oversight over their governance. Right now, we have 5 independent charter schools. They don't have any affiliation with us as a school district. As a result, they couldn't go to one of our schools and participate in the program.
What about children of staff members that are at Vista Visions but live in Escondido, San Marcos?
Yes, if they're attending Vista Visions, I believe that
If they're attending Vista Visions via an inter-district transfer, then then we could accommodate their needs.
Even though their home school residence would be something, say, outside.
As long as they're on an inter-district transfer.
right.
It's just that would have to be done on an individual basis, because then we'd have to determine residence.
Alrighty, so. We have a motion to approve 16E.
Yes, I make a motion to approve 16E.
So moved. Second?
Second.
All right, moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16E, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. Next item on the agenda is 16F, the vote on option for expanding the scope of the project labor agreement.
So this is the item that we covered earlier, so we're available for questions, but ultimately it's up to the board to engage in a conversation about the direction you would like to give us.
So, let's, someone make a motion and then we can have some further discussion.
I'll move to approve recommendation B.
I second. Further discussion?
I mean, we have spent half of our Measure L funds. And so, part of me wishes that we could go back and look at this to high school and, use those funds to, once again, hire a local workforce. We can look at the quality of the projects, and actually we can look at the data that Dr. Loesch provided, Lake, Rancho Minerva, Vista Magna Middle School. The projects came in, actually not Vista Magna, so it was, when the documents, Rancho Minerva,
Right.
Lake. The last one.
Madison.
Madison. The quality of the projects were in good condition. I'm looking at change orders. The only one that required one was Lake. There's two of them. But more than anything, I'm looking at the workforce, like we just had a demographers report, and with that, part of the reason people are leaving is cost of living. And so, $30, $40, $50 now, that's something that, people would be better off than earning $16 an hour. And so part of my main motivation a couple of years ago for this was to make sure that we have that pipeline here in our community. And with, looking forward to if this board decides to move in forward that direction.
I would just ask about our long-range facilities master plan and the question of affordability of the PLA. If it is gonna add 8% to a $65.4 million budget, that will come at the direct cost of other things that we could do with bond money for our facilities. And we know we have a lot of facility needs, so talk me through that a little bit, persuade me on why, I agree with you, for the good of our community. It would be wonderful to have high paying jobs, but that will come directly at the cost of us not having the quality of facility that we want to provide. And I think our first job as board trustees is to make sure that our facilities are safe and 21st century appropriate for our students.
Yeah, first question, I would say, like, where's the 8% coming from, Dr. Loesch?
So 8% is divided by various factors. And again, when you talk about a 8% market adjustment, that's not a factual number, it's a projection. It could be 15, it could be 5. You can only get to the point of knowing when the project's completed and actuals. The 8% projection of market increase is based upon several factors. The first factor is that there are additional reporting requirements for PLA. That is the smallest factor of that 8%. The largest factor of the 8% has to do with our considered general market forces, which are the number of PLAs that are inside of San Diego County. There are many. Because there are many, it's considered that there are fewer people to bid on the PLA projects. Therefore, you don't meet minimum bid thresholds, and portions of your project have to be rebid. When you have to rebid portions of your project, the timeline increases for the project, which increases costs. We're talking about that tonight on another item about timelines increasing and therefore costs increase and delays have. The final item is a market theory that with fewer people to bid on those items, not only might you incur more of a risk for having a delay of project, is that it becomes more expensive. And that has to do with market economics, that there are fewer people bidding. And therefore, there's less competition, and when there's less competition, the economic theory is that the price goes up. So again, the percentage of 8% is a percentage that districts are using right now. And that percentage changes from year to year. That's not to say it won't go down in the future or up, but it's the current market value increase being used by other districts.
Okay, and what was it last year?
The previous amount that it had been was approximately 5% is what they were using.
And did we see that in our PLA projects?
We had no direct comparison data because of our PLI projects. It's such a small pool of small amount. The people that make those projections aren't looking at small projects on one or two districts. They're looking across many districts, and then they have advanced statistical analysis for making those projections. So that way they can budget projects in the future.
Got it. And for like the other neighboring districts with PLA, San Diego Unified Street Water, Grossmont, what are the numbers that we're seeing there?
I don't have a direct report from them. I can look at those. What I do know, I can't speak to Grossmont, as I've been informed that San Diego Unified and Chula Vista are both using an 8% market factor adjustment as well.
Perfect. And then trustee Kelly, just to follow up on your question, to me, like, once again, it's the investment, and I'm understanding this, and it could vary. But to me, if we can build that workforce, maybe that's more students that are staying in our district. We're talking about people that, some of these folks, went to college. Some of these folks didn't go to college. And so this workforce could be an opportunity for them to stay here and not having to go to Arizona, go to Texas, or move out. And so for me, like, it's a win-win. We didn't do it. We did it with limited scope of projects. And so for me, it's like, let's look at this. This is a good opportunity. We're not going to have another big opportunity like this. And so with that in mind, out of $60 million, if that's like 10% of that $6 million that goes back into the pockets of taxpayers, is that going to make a difference for every single parent in Vista Unified? No, but it could make a difference of 100 students. I don't know, but let's try.
Trustee Smithfield?
And then how you felt when you talked about the SROs. Confused, torn. That's kind of how I feel, because I'm leaning toward the money thing, because I get our job is here first. I understand the whole community, because we're doing the community schools and everything. You can convince me that I try a little harder, sit around. So I look at that and it's like, okay, $5 million like that could be another full project for the kids. We talked about how bad our fire life safety is, and how bad our plumbing is, and we need over $1 billion to fix these things. Well, that's 5 million to go towards off of that. I understand about helping the community. The other thing about the PLA, which I just remembered, but it's been on my mind since you guys negotiated, they were not, my opinion was, they were not very good during that negotiation of their contract. We had to keep waiting on them. Tom Lemon had his troubles. And then we still hadn't heard back from them. And then months went by, we still hadn't heard back from them. And it just, everything I was excited about going into that kind of bogged me down. And I felt like, wow, I've really been fooled by this group of people. And then I'm not sure what our numbers are, but how many community people were we able to bring in, even though they were small projects? So I'm trying to think of all these different things. I wish the pilot was here, so they're worried.
Yeah.
That's just, like I said,
Yeah.
convince me, keep going.
I mean, we already have a PLA contract in place, so like, I think, the meat of it's already there. Amy talked about the exhibit, it's literally adding one additional project. And if Billy Chase doesn't want to do it, then let's, we did our part, but I think, we have 95% of it already.
So we did this one project and we said, yes, let's make this a PLA project, because we haven't had the opportunity to do a big project yet. Right?
Correct.
And then it can be looked at for the next big project, right?
I mean, we can expand it to more projects if we have, but I don't know what other projects we have coming on. the
We don't
pipeline.
have any on the books at this point in time.
Well, then that answers that.
There is still remaining money in Measure LL. We just don't have a project identified.
So for me, I go back to our kids who are learning, some of the trades, the building trades in our high schools, and I'd love to have them have the opportunity to apply for those apprenticeship programs coming out of high school and to work in the community that they were raised in. And not have to, I mean, these are jobs that start to pay $25 plus with benefits.
Can
from
I
day
ask
one.
a question?
Uh-huh.
2 things. Do they have to go down to San Diego to be in the apprenticeship program for their training? And then the other thing was, do they need that to be able to start working? So like if they're in in one of our CTE programs, our welding,
Right.
Correct.
and they're trained, they get their certificate, whatever. Can they still go and start to work, or they have to be in some apprenticeship program somewhere before they would, you follow me?
The way it works with the building trades, every union is different, right? You graduate from high school, you have a GED. You apply for the program. Some are open all year, some have deadlines, right? It's very competitive.
And this is union.
This is union. You work on the jobs where you get the job, getting the training, you go to school 2 nights a week. You go to wherever the school is, the iron workers, the electrical workers, 2 nights a week, 4 hours every night. Completely free. Doesn't cost them anything if they get paid benefits right away and they work where the job's at, learning under a journeyman. Did I
Okay,
miss
and
anything?
what if they don't go to the union apprentice, the trades union route?
That I don't know, but the other thing I want to add is that, Palomar College, there's been talk about the possibility of having like a apprenticeship preparation program at Palomar College here. So that our kids could kind of, it's kind of like a boot camp to the process, so that you are very competitive when you you go through the application process. So
Yeah,
that's.
Dr. Loesch, you have some experience in this area.
I do. So let's try to answer the questions directly, and let's start with, thank you. This is a more complex topic in California than in many other places. When we use the term apprenticeship in California, depending whether it has a capital A or a lowercase a, it actually has 2 completely different meanings. And this becomes complicated in a discussion about career technical education, because oftentimes when we talk about career technical education apprenticeships, they are with a lowercase a by law, not counting towards an accrual towards a capital A legally approved apprenticeship program. The way that this is often approached is when you have programs, whether it be lease back or other programs or PLAs, is what you seek to do in career technical education is develop a reciprocal agreement whereby students get pre-apprenticeship hours that count towards apprenticeship if they successfully graduate for the program that is retroactively applicable. As for your question as to where they go to where the apprentice program training center is located. For example, that gets more complex. If they go for electrical, they go to the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, which is located off the Kearnyville Road, which is in San Diego. But the college credit they're getting, because apprenticeship programs give college credits, if you graduate from IBEW, you have an AA degree, but it's granted from Palomar College up here. So it's intertwined into what's there. The member Alvarado is correct, or President Alvarado is correct, that if you are going to those programs, you do have multiple options. One of them is that you get to go at night for free, so long as you remain a member of good status, of which you are assigned to an individual. and you are making prevailing wage while you are going to school at night, you are working in the day with extraordinarily strict rules, including you cannot be 5 minutes late more than twice or you're out of the program. That there's some really strict rules that go along with it to make sure that they're delivering on their promises. So those are the sorts of things that are in place. Various school districts that engage in a topic about career technical education approach those differently. And different trade unions, because of their own background experiences and what they can provide, have different levels of flexibility. So we gave the example of IEDW. They typically will give their exam for free for career technical education students, so that way they pre-qualify for the program. Whereas the International Brotherhood of Theatrical Stage Employees will give them up to 2.5 years of free credit, which actually gets them to retire 5 to 7 years earlier in their career as trade carpenters. So it's really complicated. But short answer is, yeah, they tend to prefer CTE students because they have some background. They do go to school wherever the program is located. And that changes over time. Most of the major ones right now, the Carpenters Union, all of those are located along Union Hall Road, which is down in Curry Base.
May I ask a question of Dr. Loescher before he sits down again? Okay, so the timeline of the Bobier project and when Vista Unified students might be working on it. How realistic is it that someone who graduates, say, 2023 or 2024 from our CTE welding program from our high school with completion of the CTE welding program, is that person realistically going to time into working at Bobier?
Yes.
What are the timelines of
So that if that person were to realistically time into that timeline, if they're graduating here next year, they would qualify for working as on an apprenticeship position on any of those sites within the first 3 months of the program. So that would be something that could absolutely happen. For the students that are graduating currently, they would be done with their full apprenticeship program theoretically in good standing. So for the CTE welding student, they would go to the Iron Workers Union, and that they would be within their membership capabilities within 2 years.
Yeah, let me add a couple more bits of information. Sean and I are in an interesting position because we don't want to influence the board's discussion, but we want you to have the facts. So he's giving you the facts. It is interesting at this point in history in Vista Unified that our 2 newest pathways for career and technical education at Rancho Buena Vista High School, one of them is construction technology. And remember, that's broad, not focusing in a particular area, broad by design. And the other is welding. Both of those classes are full. There's much interest in those classes. And the thing that's most interesting is the welding class doesn't even have welding equipment. And it's full, because they're doing virtual welding. So I have to say, we are very impressed with the success of the program, and I would imagine it's only going to get better when they go into this amazing new facility when it gets opened up. So if there's ever a time in history when you could make something like this happen, this would definitely be the time. I guess the only caution I would say is we don't know, kids make decisions. Ultimately, the students will need to make these decisions, but certainly there's a window of opportunity, because that's what I would put on the table. I don't know how you would react to that, but that's how I would characterize this.
Yeah, we're trying to answer the questions which are theoretically as we can.
Yeah.
I can't tell you for certain if a student would join or go. I can tell you I've had students in programs that they'll join the electrical union, everything's going great, and then it's not for them. And if it's like any other program. Life happens, any number of things. Well, in my father's case, he was a mason, life happened, it was me, right? So things that happens, right? So things happen along the way. You're asking, the question was directly, is it theoretically possible?
Yeah.
Yes, it's based on timeline, that's theoretically possible. Is it theoretically factual? That's something time will tell.
Okay, so is it theoretically factual that any PLA will definitely cost us more money than option A on our option list?
No, it's not theoretically factual until it's logged in the books and done. The 8% market value adjustment is based upon a statistical analysis that's the best estimate for how you would budget a project for the future. It could be far more than 8%, it could be 12%. It could be less. There's various reports and studies about this. There are also studies and reports, and now earlier this week, Dr. Doyle asked me to put away my doctorate to write more simply, and I'm working on that very hard. But there is in literature on this, there are studies that will demonstrate in various places at various times, PLAs don't cost that much. And 24 months later, they cost 15% more. That's the whole market factor adjustment that comes in.
Thank you. So we can do a couple of things. We can vote. We can also postpone to a certain time.
Don't we have to vote for the
We
motion?
can vote it down.
Well,
And then bring it
I
back.
mean, we
Right.
already have a motion and a second, so what,
you're correct.
what's?
Okay, are you guys ready to call the question? Or would you like some more discussion?
I would like President Alvarado to finish her thought.
Well, I was just
Like,
thinking that, we're gonna vote, we have to vote because it's already been
Yes, it's,
moved and seconded. But if not, we can postpone to a certain time, to another meeting, when we have a fifth board member. So those are also options.
And
It's a subsidiary motion.
if it's a tie vote or an undecided vote this evening, what direction does that leave for you?
you could agendize it at any point in the future.
So basically, it's
A tie vote would keep things as they are.
It would just. No decision would be made, is the best way for me to
So we would
explain.
stay current.
No decision would be
The
made.
motion would fail.
There is.
No.
current.
No decision would be made on this topic, and this topic would have no impact on our project at this point in time.
so it'd be,
Remember, we mentioned earlier, the PLA wouldn't technically come into effect until the GMP, which is a year from now. I mentioned during our presentation that the reason this topic is on the agenda now is the sooner the decision is made about the PLA, the more efficient the preparation for the project would be. But if a decision isn't made tonight, it does not mean that you can't revisit this topic in future board meetings. And likely would really have very little impact on the decision. Now, if we wait 8 months, then it would probably have bigger impact. But I think to answer your question, if it's a draw tonight, which it looks like it is, that's fine. You could bring it back at a later date if the board chooses to do that.
But it doesn't mean that we would go to the lease back right away.
It does not mean that. Okay, unless I'm,
Clarification. These are lease back contracts regardless. If it's PLA. I just want to be clear about that. They're all lease back contracts. The PLA are other requirements for reporting and ways of contracting.
well, there's another clarification. This is a friendly reminder for everyone. All 4 of the contractors that applied for the pool are very aware and very capable to participate in the PLA. And that was part of the RFA, so the application of the RFP. So again, I mentioned before, no decision tonight or lack of decision tonight precludes the board from making a decision in the future about a PLA.
But the sooner we give them information, the better they
The
get
more
started.
efficient the project would be.
If we wait 3 months, that could
Correct.
put it up at 20%.
Well, I mean, we can't define that. It just would be less efficient because they wouldn't have time to talk about it. I don't think it would impact the cost of the PLA. It would just impact our ability to prepare the project.
Correct. It has no cost bearing impact by not making a decision today. The 8% market factor is likely to be an 8% market factor in 2 months to 6 months. They typically revise that every year or two. It becomes more efficient and more effective for the person retained for pre-contract services, because they're already in that mode of thinking. That's the only difference.
And they're submitting their proposals on Friday. When are we deciding a final?
17.
The 17th is when we plan to bring it to board
17th of this month.
of this month.
2 weeks.
So I have a question. With our CPE, our welding class, say, at, RBD, have we walked them through what they can do with this? Like you were saying, they're ready when they leave to start whatever. I'm not even gonna try to repeat it. You said. But they are ready to go and further that in an apprenticeship somewhere, right? They have a small A, you need to get them into the capital A.
I'd be happy to bring that information back to the board or
Yeah,
defer
yeah.
to Robert Crowell and to Dr. Olmsted over on that. I've not personally reviewed the local curriculum on that
Right,
and can't speak to it.
okay, so
But we can get you that.
here's my
information.
question. We say this, because we had this conversation about a year ago, and we asked very specifically what's being done to educate the kids in this program of where they can go with this from here. So now, we're still not.
No. We believe, I can tell you that, Robert Kroll and the teachers in those programs, I'm confident are having conversations. We just want to give you the accurate information that Robert's not here tonight.
The question was, are they learning about capital A versus small a versus what they can do with it? I can tell you that tomorrow, all of the classes at RBV are going to the job site at RBV CTE and are going through the job site personally to talk about the careers associated and the status of the project and the various things. So they're doing that.
And that if they're in this pathway, you know, like, so if I was gonna go to college, sometime before I left the school, somebody would say, okay, you need to apply, you need to do this, you need to, is there somebody there doing that? And Christine is saying, yes, there is, so.
And we'll give you more details in the Friday letter. We just don't want to speak for Robert because he's not here right now. So.
Right.
Let me speak for Robert first.
If you met with him about it, I haven't, I don't want to speak for Robert.
I have met with Robert. So we have kind of career counseling sessions that happen with the students. And so they are counseled on the various pathways that they can go into. And then there'll be more opportunities as we continue to build the programs. But that is one piece that our career counseling staff does.
So then these kids would know, okay, I can go and get into what Martha was saying.
Mhm.
And then come back and with whomever we pick and apply for a job.
That's what we're trying to guide them in that direction, yes.
But they wouldn't have priority where the PLA
They would,
gives them a priority.
yeah.
Because our zip codes,
are
our 5 zip codes are at the top.
Right.
That's the point of the feeling.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
Thanks, Christine.
All right. So, I move to postpone the motion to our next, it's a subsidiary motion.
I want to run it tonight if we can get to it. If not, we'll bring it back.
Okay. All in favor of approving 16F, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Nay. No, yes, I'm opposed. All right, the motion carries 3-1.
I'm really so torn.
I hear you. I'm torn too.
But this last bit about the kids made me think, give it a try.
All right. The next item on the agenda is 16G, approve the resolution 2329 to piggyback on the Swordfield contract. Is that what we pulled? Did we pull? No, we
No,
pulled
no, we're good.
16G.
We're good.
Okay.
So this is a piggyback agreement for Sourcewell for Motorola radios. We do have a line item in the blueprint for to purchase to standardize the emergency radio across all of the schools. Currently, they have 2 different technologies, different units. This would enable us to do some standardization across all of the sites and be able to use this piggyback to receive the discounted price in that contract.
I make a motion to approve 16G.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Smith. All in favor of approving 16G, say aye.
Sorry, one question.
Oh, I apologize.
Radios, walkie-talkies, we're still using, those are and those are still reliable, there's.
Yes, there are two technologies. We are moving to the standardizing to the VHF. There's one that has the long antenna and a short antenna. The sites have the two different technologies. I believe it is the VHF that has the more reliable, better signals, and that's what we're moving towards with that line item in the blueprint.
And this request for proposal, is it for the actual walkie-talkies or the antenna?
This is the piggyback agreement that would allow us to purchase those radios. All right. All in favor of approving 16G, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is 16H, approve the second reading and adopt revised board policy 3460, the financial reports and accountability. And so this is the second reading of adopting policy 3460.
Make a motion to approve.
I second. All right, it was moved by trustee Smithfield and seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of approving 16H, say aye. Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is 16I, approve the second reading and adopt revised board policy 3515, campus security. So this is the second reading of board policy 3515. Just stay here for a very long time. For a long time. Bring a blanket.
I make a motion to approve item 16I.
Second. So it was moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by myself. All in favor, further discussion on the policy? All right, all in favor of approving 16I, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, the next item on the agenda is 16J, approve the second reading and adopt the new board policy, school resource officers. So this is a new policy. It is the second read for school resource officers.
Couple of questions on here, and I'm excited about this policy because it's going to cover requirements and qualifications for SROs. And with that, just want to make sure that those are ready. That we can write reports so that we can review them.
Yeah.
Does that require board approval, or are you gonna have this with the admin rec?
We will develop an admin reg, but this one has to be in conjunction with the MOU we have, because we're working with non-employees. So Amy will be working as we did previously to align the MOU to the newly adopted board policy, which I don't anticipate being difficult, but we will have to have that conversation.
Perfect, and with the request should be, I include this in the 2x2.
Yeah.
We had that presentation by both the site PD and the chairs. And so with the, just feedback that we can make our systems better.
Any other questions about the policy, trustee Kelly?
Yeah, and then non-discrimination section, it says that the superintendent or designee will periodically report to the board the disaggregated data. And I was wondering what our plan is for the, how frequently the board will be able to review that.
Well, typically what we do on SROs, when we previously had SROs, is we did an annual report. We can do a biannual report twice a year if you like. But that's typically what we've done in the past. So ultimately up to the board.
I'd be curious to know if other trustees are in favor of seeing it every 6 months, just because of the, our equity policy and the need to be very proactive in making sure that the presence of SROs is not having, a negative impact on our efforts.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I think on my end, we're seeing a lot of behavior incidents that are manifested because of mental health issues, and obviously, with that, let's get those students the support they need. But with it, making sure that there's like proactiveness, it's not just, what are the steps we did before law enforcement was involved.
Yeah, and I know, so I'm in agreement with that. Definitely the report, I think it would be reassuring to some of the community members who maybe had some maybe preconceived notions or fears. And I think that if we have that access to the data at our schools, it would give us, first of all, a starting point, right? And then definitely we need to stay on top of it, just to see what the cause and effect for secondary consequences might be of having them on campus.
I agree. So we had a motion yet?
Move to approve.
Yeah, we had the motion because that's why we had the discussion. Okay. Yeah, so all in favor of approving 16J, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. All right, next on the agenda, see, I haven't had coffee. I like my coffee over there. So it's like either I drink it and stay up all night, or I don't drink it and I get tongue twisted. 16K, approve the second reading and adopt the revised board policy 3540 transportation.
So with this board policy, it does incorporate some of the legislative changes. Previously, Dr. Loescher had presented the annual transportation report back in March. This is including some of those items such as no charging for free and reduced students, et cetera. And so that this is just a clean up some of those terms of the new legislative changes.
Move to approve.
So moved, seconded. It was moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Kelly. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16K, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. Next on the,
Sorry to interrupt. I didn't have motions for J. I can go back to the
for the
last
school
year.
resource officer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we started the discussion before we had the motion, but I make a motion to approve 16J.
So point of order, right? Point of order for me. She point of order.
Just need a second.
Okay,
Second.
all right.
Thank you.
So we have a motion to approve by trustee Kelly for the school resource officer board policy 3515-31, seconded by trustee Vargas. And now a revote. All in favor of approving 16J, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. And so we did the transportation, or do I redo it just to cure and correct the?
No, we're good.
Okay.
Now for the exciting.
Now the exciting one. All right, 16L, accept the audit report of I Bailey LLP for the fiscal year 2021-22.
So this is the second year with our new audit firm, Eide Bailey. The first year was done during a COVID year. So they were remote. They were not able to test the entire population. As an example, ASBs did not operate in the 2021 year due to being virtual. And so this year, they were able, because they were in person 100%, able to take a deeper dive in all of the areas. And so in addition to being in person, there was a new GASB. GASB is a general accounting standards board. So periodically, the GASB releases new requirements on how governmental and non-governmental agencies have to reflect certain transactions. This year, it was a GASB 87, which is how we recognize leases. For our district, our leases consist of cell towers, vehicles, and property rentals. And so this was a new implementation. So as well, so that is, it took a little extra time whenever some of these GASBs are more complicated than others. So overall, our district did perform well throughout the audit. There were a couple of areas that required either a restatement of transactions or modification of existing processes. To start with, the auditors did review all major federal programs. Their opinion was that the district did meet all material respects with the compliance requirements for these programs. Their results did disclose an instance of non-compliance, which is required to be reported. It was in the area of indirects. So just to recap what indirects are, for federal and state programs, districts are able to charge what's called basically an overhead or indirect rate to support those programs. On the federal program side, all of our COVID and ESSER funds qualify for indirects. There was one area that did not qualify. And so there was a charge of $10,937. Because of that instance, they did have to disclose it as non-compliance.
Pardon me. I'm so sorry, I interrupted. We need a motion to extend our meeting.
I make a motion that we extend our meeting to 11:30.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
I second the motion. All right, so I have a motion by trustee Kelly and a second by myself to extend the meeting to 11 o'clock. All in favor of extending the meeting to 11, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Sorry, it was 10:08, so.
Their opinion of all of the other major federal programs were not impacted as a result of that indirect item. For their internal controls review, they did not identify any deficiencies in internal control over compliance that they considered to be a material witness. However, they did have to quantify the indirect charge also was an issue with internal controls. And so the resolution is we have to reverse the charge of $10,937. As far as processes, we did implement a secondary review process. Previously, it was on one desk. And so now we're doing a cross-check to make sure that accountants are cross-checking the indirect journals. So the next area was state compliance. In their opinion, the district has complied with all material aspects with the requirements, laws, and regulations of state programs. They also did note one area of non-compliance, and that is independent study contracts. And so as you remember, during COVID, there was a change to independent study. We had to adopt new policies, new contracts. They had additional regulations. We had short-term, we had long-term. There was a lot of changes districts. This is a very common finding that districts were having, in particular with independent study. For us, it was a couple of areas. So with the new legislation, it was requirement of first you had to adopt policies. Then with the contracts, you had to have 3 signatures and then evidence of the work product. And so during their review, they go through the contracts, and there was contract that didn't either have all the signatures or the signatures were obtained after the independent study occurred, or the body of work was not to the degree of that tied with the contract. So there was approximately $1.6 million of attendance that we did have to revise at P2. As far as our financials last year, as a reminder, we did have that legislative relief specifically for districts to be able to use the 1920 attendance rates if we were substantially compliant with independent study, which we were. So last year we were able to utilize our attendance rate, which was the 95% from 1920 times our current enrollment. This will impact going forward because, as a reminder, we have that rolling 3-year average. So last year now becomes part of that rolling 3-year average. And so what we have the ability to do is to complete the appeals process. And so other districts are going through the same thing. You have to present your case that you are substantially compliant and submit to the appeals board. And so that's what we will be doing now that we have our final audit report, so that we can recoup that value, so that as we do our calculations of the LCF calculator, that 3-year rolling average will include this independent study attendance.
So Amy, just one clarification, and I could be wrong on that. So my understanding that one of the factors that triggered this finding was that there were 2 students they found.
So there was there's long-term and short-term. So in the case of the long-term, it was the 2 students. And there were some 2 students, 4 days each. But as far as the short-term, that's the majority of where the findings were. So as a reminder, it was that 15-day period when you're in quarantine. So it was one of those periods where you had kids coming on and off. So you're in short-term, you either went to long-term or you're able to go back to school. And so that was one of the challenges with contracts of getting the signatures and matching the timing, the signatures, the body of work. And so that's why, as I mentioned, this finding is a common one, and that's why they did that legislative relief to use that 1920 attendance factor. And then the appeals process to show that we were substantially compliant in all of our other areas. Because as a reminder, we did present the board policy changes, we updated the contracts. It was on the execution of the contracts and the timings and being able to check all the boxes timely. And so then the next area of findings was on the financial statements. Overall, we had positive review of all of our internal processes in the other fiscal matters such as cash flow, program reposting, filings, and fiscal solvency management. We had some adjustments that we need to reflect on other fund balances. I'm going to spend a moment to talk about one of them because it is another GASB, General Accounting Standard Board, GASB 31, fair market value. And so this is an interesting one because what the fair market value intention is a non-monetary adjustment to your assets on the books as a reflection as of June 30th that reflects how the market is performing. And so it gives the ability for, as an example, investors to be able to look across multiple companies, entities, to be able to tell how the healthiness of their assets. And so it's just a way to be uniform. It does not impact the value of the cash in the bank. And so why this was particularly significant for this year is because at the end of the year, we went and we had a large cash balance in our general fund because we had a lot of those restricted grants. And so, and the market was going down at the same time. And so having the, this was a staff issue, a training issue of being of the correct calculation to reflect the adjustment on paper. Because again, it doesn't change the cash balance. It gets reversed back on July 1st. It's just a way on your financial statements that they could see the value of that. And so we had that in several of the funds that the other example was on the Measure LL because we had just gone out to market for the $137 million. So the cash was in the bank. The cash still stays the same amount. It's just on paper. We had to show that the market was not performing because the interest rates had dropped. They dropped right after we went out, and then that gets reversed. And then in the flip side, going forward, what this GASB 31 would do is if when the market sees an improvement, we would reflect on paper the improved performance of interest rates to the balance, but there's no change to the actual cash. It's one of those accounting entries that we have to do on financial statements. And then on the other item, it was on our Fund 40. As a reminder, Fund 40 is where our COP funds, the $41 million. We currently have with the COP, you have to leave the cash with the trustee. Our trustee is US Bank, and how the COP works is periodically as we spend those funds, we have to submit a reimbursement, and then US Bank sends us the cash that ties up for the reimbursement. So at the time, all of the $40 million was sitting in the bank, US Bank, and not in the county treasury. Our auditors wanted us to required us to reflect that balance on our books, even though the cash was in the US Bank. And so we had to restate the ending fund balance to reflect that transaction, even though the cash was still in the US Bank. So that's what that adjustment was for. And then the last adjustment was in the area of the self-insurance fund. This is another financial statement readjustment. So with our self-insurance fund, every month as we get invoices, we pay them, and then we close the books. What the auditor wanted to see that we did not have is an estimate for future claims not yet recognized. And so our previous auditors did not require that adjustment. Our current auditor requires that we show a reflection because it is a self-insurance fund to designate what the potential future liability of unpaid claims could be based on previous experience of what we've been paying out. So that's just an adjustment on paper to reflect a adjustment to the fund balance. It doesn't affect the cash because it's an estimate of future claims not yet paid. So that's what happened with Fund 67. And so that, in summary, is the, and then the last piece of it was ASB. ASB was not a formal finding, but it was the first time that they were able to audit because the previous year ASBs didn't exist. So they had recommendations on internal controls. They wanted to see more timely deposits. They wanted to see the paperwork in alignment with, they wanted 3 signatures, and tied with the approvals, the minutes, and the check release. So what we'll be doing is we'll be contracting with our auditors to do a training with all of our ASBs. We've already talked to the ASBs. Every year they audit a different ASB. This in particular is Mission Vista. This current year, 22-23, they are auditing Vista High, and then next year will be RBB. But what we're going to do is bring in all of our ASB advisors and the financial clerks, bring in the auditors, and do like a half-day training so that they know best practices and internal controls. And so that's how we're going to mitigate that, hopefully, for future findings. But that is one that is typical for districts because we're working with students, advisors, and administration. So again, perfectly tying up all those transactions to be what is recommended by auditors. It's not uncommon for districts to have an audit finding, but what we want to do is get ahead of the curve and do that training. And then we're also in the process of writing the ASB handbook where we'll standardize forms and procedures. And so that will be another step.
Any questions?
Did you repeat what you said?
Yeah. That we have to fix a few things related to pandemic, kids attending independent study.
Yeah, that
And our ASB.
bothers me that they gave us such thing.
Pretty much every district got that.
Yeah.
Yes, I was bothered by the indirects of $10,937 because our indirects are about 5 million a year.
Right, yeah, and
And so, but it was a federal program, and when you have to report it,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
federal.
That's what she said. We're gonna work on it.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion for 16?
I definitely make a motion to approve 16M.
So move.
No,
L.
We're on L.
Sorry.
We're on L.
Already turned the page.
Okay, so moved by trustee Kelly to approve 16L, seconded by trustee Smithfield. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16L, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. And they appear, it's Amy show.
One more.
16M, approve the final closeout.
I'm going to read Proposition O closeout audit for you so that you know, just kidding. So this is the final audit you will see for Proposition O. It is a requirement, the closeout audit is a requirement to occur the year after there are absolutely no transactions. The last transaction that we had was a $54,000 annual maintenance that we had to do for Rancho Minerva on the wetlands because we were under the Army Corps of Engineering to maintain the wetlands. We have now done that restricted covenant. And so we're 2 years ago, we did the last payment. This year is the closeout. And so there were no audit findings. And that concludes Proposition O overview.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 16M. Please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving 16M, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, 16M, approve the annual declaration of a need for qualified educators for the 2023-2024 school year.
Okay, this is our typical annual item that actually declares the approximate number of emergency credentials that we will need. So based on staffing needs and potential staffing shortages, we have given an approximate number for multiple subjects, BCLADs, content specific, science. So all of those are in there, and it's a little higher than normal, just to kind of cover ourselves.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 16N.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16N, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is 16O, approve the MOU between Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association regarding the advisory committee.
So this MOU provides an outline of an agreement between district and BTA regarding Articles 18 and 20 to have an advisory committee 4 and 4 of the district and BTA, where we would come together and discuss Articles 18 and 20 regarding duty hours specifically to event credits and what the teachers do outside of the classroom, and then also having conversations about class size. And so the hope is that this will help us have some discussions prior to bargaining.
Move to approve.
I second, but I have a question.
Sure.
The report from BTA alluded to this committee advising on the possibility of a 7-period day at our comprehensive school sites. Can you?
The actual MOU does
page
not talk,
527.
does not talk about specifically the 7-period day. It specifically says the purpose of this advisory committee is to hold a meaningful dialogue concerning, but not limited to, prep time, enrollment issues, work schedules, workloads, and instructional day. So there could be some input the VTA could provide regarding the instructional day or a 7-period day. But this will be discussions between the group where they can talk to us and we can provide information back. They might state concerns. It's just to have meaningful dialogue about those.
Any further questions? All right, all in favor of approving 16-0, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion, Mr. Vargas? Motion carried 4-0. Next item on the agenda is 16P, approve the MOU between the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association regarding summer school hourly pay 2023.
So we currently provide for after-school programs. We have an MOU for $60 an hour for our certificated staff. And so we'd like to extend that through summer school to make sure that we have enough staff for all of the students and everybody.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by trustee Vargas, seconded by trustee Kelly. Further discussion? All in favor of approving 16P, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries 4-0. 16Q, approve the MOU between the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association regarding the service provider coverage compensation.
So our district currently has a process through special education that's happened for many years. If we have a teacher, an ed specialist on leave or vacancy, we would have a substitute teacher that would be in there. If the substitute teacher is not credentialed in special ed, we needed a credentialed teacher to provide the IEP and the assessments. And so we've always paid other teachers an hourly rate outside of their contract day to complete the compliance part of an IEP. So what's happened over the years is we've never outlined that process. So we did put that in our new tentative agreement. And so we took that piece, put it into this MOU, because at this time we have vacancies, we have increased IEPs. We have a big need for our teachers to kind of step up and do that hourly pay. So we are recommending to pay the teachers per diem through the end of the school year to help kind of compensate them for the extra work. And then it would revert back to an hourly rate at the start of next year.
All right,
I make a motion to approve 16Q.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have just a curiosity here. How are we doing? Are we able to keep up with all those end of the year IEPs and stuff? Since we're short, you're looking at me like that, answering that question.
No, I wouldn't be able to answer it completely. I could get that information. We can put it in the Friday letter.
No,
But I can tell you we're
sometimes fracture comes.
right.
Can't get everything done.
So my understanding is they are completing the IEPs.
Okay.
And but we're trying to get additional ed specialists to do some of the work for the initial ones that are putting ed specialists over caseload and actually supporting them. So
we'll be okay.
yeah, it's the same practice we've always used. It's just right now we'd like to pay them hourly per diem to get us through to the end of the school year.
Okay, thank you.
And I did request the AP because of my teacher, so we're 122 overdue.
120.
122 special education
I
assessment.
wish we can remembering that. Good job.
Because there's 198, I think something, almost 200 pending.
All right, so we have first by trustee, moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving 16Q, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda, 16R, approve the MOU between the Vista Unified School District and the Vista Teachers Association regarding professional development days for new teachers.
So for this next school year, we'd like to shift our onboarding voluntary sessions that happen in the month of July for our new teachers to right before all the teachers come back. So they would have 2 full days of professional development that are right against the new school year. That means it would be mandatory. They would be paid per diem, a regular 2 days, and trying to give and making it mandatory so we can actually reach more new teachers.
Make a motion to approve 16R.
Second, question, new teachers as in their first, second year, or like new teachers to the district?
New teachers to the district. We really like to onboard them. All of the departments spend time coming before them, talking to them. We just try to onboard them to Vista and just also new teacher professional development that they might need. The onboarding sessions are great in the summer, but we haven't hired all of the teachers at that time. And so we feel like we miss them. We give them an opportunity to, we videotape them or they can do other things. It's not the same. So we'd like to try that this year and see if that makes an impact on
How
them.
many did we have last summer?
So we had 110 teachers in induction. And so there were 250 Probe 1 and 2 teachers. So there's a little bit, so it was about 150, 160 for, new teachers. The 110 of them were brand new, just receiving their credential. So the idea is those people would continue, those teachers would continue through the year in induction, but we could really give some good in-depth professional development before they start.
Yeah, so this one would include those ones plus the new ones?
Well, yeah, because all of the people in induction they're the new ones. Like year 2, they would start into the year 2 induction.
All right, so it was moved by trustee Kelly and seconded by trustee Vargas to approve 16R. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor of approving 16R, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. Next on the agenda is item 16S. Approve the salary increase and an increase to health and welfare benefits for classified confidential supervisory and management non-representative groups retroactive to July 1st, 2022.
So this is aligned with our approval of the tentative agreement between VTA and VUSD. This is one of the groups that would technically have a Me Too and get similar salary increase. So we went with the total compensation increase of 7.04, which was the same as CSDA and VTA. It comes out a little bit different because there's the benefits are 0.17 and the salary increase would be 6.87, which is the total compensation increase of 7.04.
Make a motion to approve item 16.
So moved. Second,
Second.
seconded by trustee Vargas. Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. All in favor of approving, any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16S, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. And the next is 16U because we pulled 16T. Staff pulled that. Approve architectural services contract for a new clear cooler project at CNS at Breeze Hill Elementary School.
So this is a project that will be funded from Fund 13. Because of the size of their current ending fund balance, they are on a spend plan, which means they have a higher balance than is allowable. You cannot have more than 3 months of reserves. So as a result, you're going to be seeing some project requests come forward. One of the projects they'll be doing is looking at the coolers at our sites to see what's been sized correctly. There are some sites based on the free universal meal service that our freezers or coolers are not large enough because our meal participation is growing. We also want to move to more fresh farm to table type items, which requires more space because fresher produce and items. And so Breeze Hill is one of those that they are at capacity and they really need more space. This proposal from the architect would expand the size of their cooler. We have ensured that the cooler goes along the side of the building. We don't want it to stick out because then it impacts student supervision. So this one would be along the building. It basically doubles in size to give them the needed space that they need.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 16U.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving 16U, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries 4-0. And then, last on this part of the agenda. Yeah.
Last item.
16B.
Lawsuit.
16B, approval of legal services agreement with France Law Group for the purposes of the social media litigation.
And so this would be the contract to work with the Franz Law Group. So similar to our Jewel class action, this would be our legal representation for the, you may have read this in the news, the social media litigation, several of those large social media presences and the impacts that they're having on our students and their mental health. And so this would be contracting with the law firm to participate in that lawsuit.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 16B.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Kelly, seconded by trustee Vargas. Any further discussion about 16B? All right, all in favor of approving 16B, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, and 17, there's no other person, we didn't have to continue public comment, so 18A, board business discussion, request for future board agenda items or other business. None from me? None? Okay, 16B, board member reports or comments that weren't mentioned earlier.
So, I was talking about, Michigan Vista's poster presentation for the leading the way. That is on the 24th from 6 to 8 in the library. And they would like for any board members who are interested to come in.
We can have Chris send an invite so that you all have a choice. It will be a good thing.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And I would, as far as comments, I think we should maybe have another kind of informational night for our students CTE so they can kind of get a refresher about what's out there. I really don't think that that's on the radar, that there's a possibility of getting an apprenticeship with the building trades, the processes. I know we have job fairs, but like the last job fair that we had with the building trades, it was during the pandemic. It was just them, but it was a drive-through and it was really hard to get students and there, you know, so I'm thinking it's a good idea. Maybe in the summer, right after people graduate, but to put it on the radar, like we're gonna have this, come on out a certain day. I think it would be very worthwhile to both the juniors and the seniors graduating on what the possibilities may be.
We will follow up with that.
Yeah.
We're heading to the end of the year celebrations. So Chris, thank you for some of the dates. I encourage my colleagues to look at those dates and sign up so that we can equally distribute our presence at all of our amazing campuses. And with that, I'll be at this high school graduation. Thank you.
Or you'll be.
I'll be at Mission Vista. Yeah, I'll be.
Oh.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I will probably be at Rancho this year.
Okay,
I will be around.
Okay.
I'll be at Vista High then, with trustee Vargas for that. And then we'll look at all the other ones, but now we have all the schools covered.
Yes.
And I'll be at General Murray as well.
Yeah.
I will be there.
All right.
Excellent.
17B, I wanted to recall a comment we heard earlier this evening that there has not been Spanish translation provided at the asset management committee meetings, and I'd like to request that we ensure that that is available for every meeting, so the whole public can participate and
We'll make that
understand
happen.
the process.
And then I'd like to add on with I know that we feel like we've done a really good job with communication as evidenced by the letters and presentations on this day, we did this, on this day. But what else could we do to communicate better with our families that maybe aren't watching the board meeting? I don't know, I mean, just thinking outside the box, how we could better communicate at the school sites, whether it be, I have no idea, cafecito with the principal, where they say this is going on and this is the format of this meeting, right? That it's a Brown at committee meeting, and the format is A, B, and C, right? You have a public comment at this point, and then the rest is the business of the board. Well, how can we better get the news and the word out to our families so they're not confused? Because I think it can be daunting even for a person who's involved, right? Like person on a PTA committee, it can be daunting, it can be very communicating, so confusing.
We'll work with our principals on that.
It's just something better.
I agree.
I mean, we're doing a good job, but that's assuming that you're gonna read your community update, right? So if we're not.
That's a really
Can't,
complex
like,
process.
Go into their house and read it to them. You know, like, I just think we do so much and we're always looking for more ways, which we should. But at some point, it's like, we can't knock on their door and say, okay, I'm gonna sit down and make sure you know all the communication that.
Can we utilize our community liaisons with a fact sheet that, you know, in English and Spanish that can just, I mean, they're the point of contact and our principals. But we have a lot of great networks. But I think Trustee Smithfield's correct, you know, like you can only put the information out there. You can't make sure everyone read it. However, I think we want to control the rumors. And, you know, it's an emotional, stressful topic for people. So I think, as President Alvarado stated, like we have to go above and beyond to make sure that we're being as proactive as possible with communications and helping people understand what's happening and how.
Yeah, and with that being said, our translators are spread really thin. I've talked to them and they say that, you know, they have like a sign up sheet, and if there's another event at another school or an IP or this or that, that it's only a certain amount of brackets. So if we look at the sign up sheet and those brackets are full and it's the night of one of these committees, then perhaps we need to move the time of the meeting, I don't know. Or the date.
Yeah, well, let us look into that. That was a mistake. I apologize. We will do better
Yeah,
as a team.
but am I right that there's a finite amount of spots in this
Yeah.
brackets, and there's also a timeline, like if I want you to translate for me, I need a 2-week turnaround, or I don't know what the date is
Yeah,
for the amount of days.
yeah, I mean, I think the need is interpretation. And so let us follow up on that. We will do better.
All right. Any further comments? All right, so reflections on tonight.
10:40.
All right. All right, so this meeting is adjourned.
At that Peter.
At